Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes servant of devils in Highschool DxD part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Emptiness, that's all Naruto Uzumaki could feel as he floated aimlessly throughout a vast black void. His senses were dulled and he couldn't feel anything, which made the young knucklehead wonder if this is what dying felt like. Or perhaps he was already dead. Regardless, Naruto knew he had defeated Kagaya and that was the only thing that mattered to him. However, his victory was not without obvious consequences, considering after his final clash, Naruto was almost positive that he had died, along with both Kagaya and Sasuke. Kurama. Naruto called out weakly, hoping his partner was somewhere nearby. However, after only a brief moment of silence, Naruto closed his blue eyes and took a small sigh. I guess this is where my story ends. Naruto mumbled in a soft and defeated tone while he slightly cursed his luck. I'm sorry I let everyone down. The young hero finished as he thought back to his friends and family. Knowing he was going to die without completing any of his promises or dreams. Though oddly enough, Naruto suddenly felt something strange touch his chest. A sensation that filled him with warmth, but most importantly was a spark that quickly moved its way throughout his body and reignited the feeling back to his body. What's going on? Naruto began softly as his eyes opened wide to gaze into a giant blinding light hovering above him. Arokai. A muffled and hardly audible voice called out, one that filled Naruto with curiosity and hope that his situation was about to change. Is someone there? Naruto called back loudly while the light began to grow brighter and brighter. Oh please God. The voice from before began and this time Naruto was able to identify much more than before. Since now he could clearly hear the voice of what sounded to be a woman talking to him. Save this man. Who are you? Naruto asked while he could hardly see due to the blinding light now obscuring his vision. You talked. The voice chirped in a mixture of astonishment and excitement. Naruto was confused, but before he could say anything he felt his entire body jerk upwards. Then what could only be described as the force of a mountain being crushed down upon him, he laid motionless against the ground. However, riddled with pain, Naruto could instantly tell multiple things. For starters, he could feel pain. Which sucked, but is better than being dead in his book. Second, he could feel himself laying on the hard ground, which again is an improvement from an endless void. However, most notable was the symphony of sounds that reached his ears. Some were familiar like the chirping of birds and the howling of the wind, but other sounds were foreign to him. So finally opening his eyes, Naruto noticed he was in an alleyway, but he wasn't alone. Considering the most beautiful woman he had ever met was currently hovering over him with worry in her eyes. She was a young girl around the same age as his own if he were to make assumptions. She had long blonde hair that cascaded down her slender frame and a pair of gorgeous green eyes. Both of which were currently scanning Naruto from head to toe. However, what caught Naruto's immediate attention were her, which were practically pressed into Naruto's face, regardless of the strange black robe the girl was wearing. My name is Aurora Argento. The now named Aurora began in a kind and friendly tone. Who are you? Can I help you? Naruto smiled at the girl's almost instant need to help him, but before he could say anything his eyes grew heavy and before he knew what was happening, he drifted into unconsciousness. Naruto's mindscape jerking upward. Naruto was greeted with the all too familiar sight that was the sower inside his mind. However, that wasn't the only thing Naruto found, as gazing down upon him with a cocky smirk was his partner and friend Kurama. It's good to see you, kid. Kurama bellowed in a gruff but otherwise pleased voice. Kurama. Naruto shouted in both joy and confusion. I'm so happy to see you, but what the hell happened? Did we really defeat Kagaya? Well, for starters, you and that disgraceful Icha had defeated Kagaya, but it wasn't without the cost of your own lives. Well, to be more exact, the cost of your friend's life. Kurama explained in a simple tone, while Naruto simply tilted his head in confusion. A response that made Kurama huff. The backlash from your Sasuke and Kagaya's final clash literally tore a hole in our dimension. As such, Kagaya died and you along with Sasuke floated inside an empty void. But I'm obviously not now. What happened? Where is Sasuke? Kurama sighed. I watched everything from inside your body. Your friend used the eyes the Sage of Six Paths gave him to speak with me inside your mind, much like he did at Orochimaru's old base. He figured the only way to escape your predicament was to use both halves of the old man's chakra to escape your situation. So he removed his eyes and placed them in your body and asked me to take over and get you to safety. Naruto held his hands out in protest. But why would Sasuke do that? Naruto asked in a pain-filled voice, as just the idea of his friend doing such a sacrifice for him made him sick. Why would he throw his dreams and ambitions away to save me? We could have worked together to escape. Kurama closed his eyes. I've done horrible things and I've been lost for years. I have been consumed by hatred constantly and I'm ready to be with my brother. If my only and last good deed is spent saving this idiot, then I'm okay with that. I know he can create a world that Itachi would be proud of. Kurama began as he glanced down to his partner with a hard gaze. Those were the final words of Sasuke Uchiha before he gifted you his eyes and died. From there I did everything I could to keep you alive and also save you from the empty void you were trapped in. Naruto clutched his chest as he thought over the last words of his best friend. They had a strained relationship, but in the end Sasuke believed in him and sacrificed everything for that faith. So what part of the elemental nations are we in now? Naruto asked as he looked up to the massive fox. From the brief moment I was awake I could tell I wasn't in Konoha. So where are we? About that, Kit. Kurama began in a low and slightly upset voice. We are no longer in the elemental nations. Hell, we aren't even in the same dimension, and before you even ask I have no clue where we are. But what about everyone back home? Are they okay? Can we get back? Naruto shouted loudly, but Kurama merely sighed. I don't know, Kid, I honestly don't know. Kurama replied, which made Naruto drop his head sadly. But remember, you're not alone. We will get through this together, but in the meantime that woman who found you is waiting for you to awake. So we will talk later. Unknown location. Being quickly flung from his mind and back into the real world, Naruto slowly opened his eyes and quickly found he was no longer in the alleyway from before. Instead he was tucked into an unfamiliar bed and the girl from before was seated on a stool at his bedside. You're awake again. Aurora cheered happily while she tilted her head and gave a friendly eye smile. Aurora, right? Naruto asked in a slightly confused voice, which made the girl nod happily. Well, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and could you tell me where I am exactly? Nodding her head, Aurora stood to her feet. You're in Italy, or to be more exact, the city of Naples, unless you're talking about this house, which is my apartment in the city. The friendly blonde explained in a rather bubbly voice. Naruto absorbed the information he was given and took a moment to think. Considering he never heard of Italy or Naples for that matter, so it further proved he was no longer in his original dimension. Well, I thank you for everything you've done for me so far, Aurora. I am in your debt. Naruto spoke up while he perched himself upwards and noticed he wasn't wearing a shirt. This of course displayed Naruto's chilled chest and abs, while Aurora blushed a deep shade of red. Where is my shirt? Well, it was all ripped up and I took it off to check if you had any injuries. Aurora explained in a rather nervous voice. So you found me and brought me back to your place to check my injuries. Naruto gathered together, which made the young blonde nod softly. Well, why didn't you just bring me to a hospital? There is hospitals in Naples, right? At this question Aurora tensed up slightly. Well, you were pretty beaten up and in an alleyway. So I figured you were somehow involved with the passion in the city. So I was afraid to take you somewhere public, but I know God's plan involved me finding you. So I took you back to where I live so I could help you. Well, I'm not exactly from around here and I have no clue what the passion is. Naruto admitted in an honest tone, which made Aurora sigh in relief. But I'm grateful for what you've done for me so far. Don't mention it, Naruto. Aurora replied in a happy voice while she turned away and started to leave the room. But you must be hungry. So stay right there and I'll get you something to eat. Naruto watched Aurora walk off with a smile and slightly reclined back into the bed he was in while he allowed his eyes to observe his surroundings. Noticing Aurora's apartment was rather small and reminded the blonde of his own apartment in Konoha minus the mess. So it made Naruto wonder if his newly made acquaintance lived on her own. Hey Kurama. Naruto spoke softly to himself. What is it? The powerful nine-tailed fox asked. What do you think we should do first? Naruto asked. Well, we know we are in a city called Naples that is located in Italy, which is most likely the country we are in. Also, this girl does speak our language, which is beneficial for us and saves us from having to deal with any annoying speech barriers. I say for now stick close to this Aurora girl and gather as much information as possible. I doubt we can return to our dimension anytime soon if ever. So you should start adjusting to our new setting. Naruto nodded as it sounded like a reasonable plan. Besides, the blonde was starting to like Aurora as he could feel her emotions were genuine kindness that he hadn't seen from very many people. I'm back. Aurora announced while she walked over with a cup of instant ramen in her hands. I hope you don't mind ramen. I am not much of a cook and I really don't belong in a kitchen. Though I can make one mean instant ramen. Are you kidding? Ramen is the food of the gods. Naruto shouted in a giddy voice as he would never pass up on his favorite food. Aurora laughed softly and handed Naruto the cup of noodles, which the blonde practically consumed instantly. Well, Naruto, you never told me what you were doing unconscious in that alleyway in the first place. Aurora pointed out while she reclaimed her seat beside the blonde. Choking on his noodles, Naruto silently cursed to himself as he didn't really know what to tell the girl. Lucky for Naruto, he had a helpful voice within his mind. Tell her you recently moved to Naples and got mugged and lost all your things. Well, I've been wanting to move to Naples, but when I got here I got mugged and lost all my stuff. Naruto lied, as it was easier than saying he jumped dimensions with the power of a sage after fighting the mother of the same sage. Oh you poor thing, God bless you. Aurora began in a truly concerned voice while she reached out and grabbed onto Naruto's wrist. You can stay with me for as long as you need. Naruto grinned wide at Aurora's kindness. That would be awesome, Aurora-chan. Aurora smiled wide. Then it is settled, you will stay with me, and in the meantime I can show you around the city and even get you some actual clothes. Naruto chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. Sounds like a plan to me, Aurora. Well, after you're done eating we can get some sleep since it's getting pretty late out. Aurora explained in a carefree voice while Naruto looked away from the girl and to his raiment. Completely unaware to the girl who was currently stripping down into her bra and panties. Well, where are you going to sleep? Naruto began, but stopped with his jaw dropped when he noticed Aurora standing completely in her underwear with an innocent smile on her face. With you, of course, silly. Aurora declared to the stunned blonde. There is only one bed after all. Naruto's eyes grew increasingly wide while the roaring of Kurama's laughter echoed throughout his mind. Make that perverted teacher of yours proud, brat. Kurama yelled loudly. A few days later, it has been a couple days since Naruto had stumbled his way into the life of Aurora Argento and began his new life in Naples. Since then Naruto had learned a few things about this new world he was in and more importantly the girl who had found him and taken him in. Apparently, Aurora had been an orphan her entire life much like Naruto, but she eventually reached the age of 18 and began to live on her own. Despite her loneliness, Naruto found the girl to be incredibly kind and caring and liked to spend her free time volunteering in orphanages and homeless shelters. Currently the duo were walking around Naples with the goal of familiarizing Naruto with the area and finding a possible job to support himself. However, as they walked the duo got many jealous looks from both men and women. Considering Naruto was now wearing a tight yellow shirt and a simple pair of tan joggers, while Aurora was wearing a fairly modest black shirt and matching shorts. Though the real kicker was how Aurora had her arms wrapped around Naruto's own as she led him throughout the city. Over there is a great bistro if you want a nice dinner, but it's owned by the Passion. And that way leads to a large market for some fresh fish and other produce. Then in that direction is where the local church I attend is. Aurora explained in a giddy voice as she constantly pointed Naruto in multiple directions. It's a lovely city. Naruto commented before looking up to the bright blue sky. It's different from where I grew up, but I could see myself staying here. Aurora grinned from ear to ear. And you haven't even seen the best parts yet. And I'm sure you'll show me everything Naples has to offer. Naruto replied back with a soft laugh that Aurora shared. But I'm curious, Aurora. Naruto began as he ignored the numerous jealous looks he was getting from passing by men. I've spent a few days with you and I still haven't learned all that much about you. So why don't you tell me more about yourself? You know, like your likes, dislikes and hobbies. Aurora placed her free hand to her chin and thought over Naruto's idea. Sure. The girl began before pointing back at the blonde with a grin. Only if you tell me about yourself in return. That's fair enough. Naruto replied. Well, I like God, cooking and you. I dislike those who prey on the weak or commit horrible actions in the name of God. My dreams are to find the love of my life and finally have a family to call my own. That and spread as much love and kindness in the name of God to the world that I can. I even want to one day move to the Vatican City and officially join and work for the church. Naruto smiled as Aurora had a wonderful set of dreams for the future. Well, I like training, ramen and my precious people. I dislike the time it takes to cook ramen and people who only want to cause destruction. My dream is to one day finally make my master's dream of world peace a reality. Then maybe get a family of my own along the way. Your master? Aurora asked as she had no knowledge of anything involving Naruto's old life. Yeah, his name was Jiraiya and he was a huge pervert, but he taught me everything I know and was the closest thing I had to a father before he was killed. Naruto explained, which caused Aurora to drop her head in sadness. I'm sorry to hear that. Naruto waved the girl off as he had worked past the death of Jiraiya. It's okay, I miss the old pervert, but losing him helped me grow even further as a person. You know, brat, not a single person has ever heard of your perverted master in this dimension or his books. You could plagiarize the living hell out of his books and make a killing. I mean, your master managed to make quite the killing off those books, so why not do the same? Hearing the idea of the fox inside his head, Naruto pondered over the idea. Considering it wasn't an awful idea, but it did run the risk of Naruto turning into a major pervert like Jiraiya was. I'll think about it. Naruto replied back in his mind, but was quickly snapped back to reality once he held Aurora grip tightly onto Naruto's arm. He then felt the girl's emotions spike with a mixture of worry and fear. Aurora. Naruto began, while he glanced down to the girl and could tell she was shaken. So reaching out he brought her body closer to his, which slightly calmed the girl. Are you okay? Passion? The girl whispered softly, while her green eyes focused on three goons walking right in their direction. Meanwhile the surrounding area was quickly clearing at the mere sight of the three individuals. "Well, what do we have here, boys?" One of the gangsters spoke up while he looked directly at Aurora with a sleazy grin. "If I wasn't mistaken I would say it's the local high and mighty church girl. I think you're right. She's so busy worshipping her pretend god." Another goon spoke up while tugging on his groin. "Well, I got something real for you to worship." Aurora was absolutely appalled by the men's remarks and she slowly retreated behind Naruto. The latter of whom balled his fists as he didn't appreciate what any of the strangers were saying. "Why don't you ditch that loser can come have some fun with us?" The third member of the group proposed while he motioned for Aurora to walk over to him with his finger. Aurora shuddered, but she quickly thought over her current situation. These individuals were all members of a notorious gang in Italy, meaning they were capable of awful things. Worst of all, if she didn't comply to their wishes, Naruto could be placed in danger and she didn't want that. So the young woman was about to step forward and give herself up. However, before she could move, Naruto spoke up. "I'll give you one chance to apologize to Aurora and walk away." Naruto began in a firm and confident tone while his blue eyes hardened and he stood protectively in front of Aurora. "If not, I won't feel sorry for what happens to you." The three goons began to laugh and one even revealed a large pocket knife that made Aurora gasp. "How about you fuck off, asshole?" the goon in the middle shouted while he took one step forward. However, before his second foot could even move, Naruto was suddenly in his face with a finger held to his forehead. "I tried to warn you." Naruto sighed while he flicked the man with enough force to send him barreling down the street unconscious. Taken by surprise, the goon with a knife tried to stab Naruto, but Naruto grabbed the blade and snapped the weapon in two. Then without remorse Naruto punched his second attacker in the chest, sending him straight into a water canal that was nearby. Finally, the last goon pulled out a small handgun and took quick aim at Naruto. "Ah, you stupid fucker." The Passion yelled while he fired multiple shots directly at Naruto. The latter of whom merely looked at the man with a blank expression before holding his fist out to the man. Then with a dead stare Naruto opened his hand and every single bullet fell out of his hands and bounced onto the ground. "Don't say I didn't warn you," Naruto mumbled while he gave the man a swift and powerful chop to the neck, knocking him unconscious in a single blow. Aurora stood in awe and looked directly at the unharmed blonde. From what he told her, Naruto was mugged on his first day in Naples, but here he was fighting like some kind of unstoppable force. Hell, he flicked someone so hard then rolled down an entire street and he caught multiple bullets fired at him from point-blank range. This of course made Aurora begin to think there was much more to her new friend. "Aurora." Naruto spoke up softly, which grabbed the girl's attention and made her look forward. Noticing Naruto was slowly walking back to her side. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but you didn't get mugged when you first came to Naples, did you?" Aurora began in a critical tone while she looked the blonde up and down. "There is no way I could believe that after what I just saw." Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. "Yeah, you're right about that. Heh, sorry for not telling the full truth." "Well, could you tell me the truth now?" Aurora asked softly. "It's a long story, but I guess I can trust you. That's if you want to listen about the tale of Naruto Uzumaki." Aurora nodded. "Of course. I want to know more about you, Naruto." Smiling wide, Naruto suddenly scooped Aurora into his arms, which made the girl blush a deep shade of red. "Well, why don't we go somewhere more private?" Naruto purposed before. To Aurora's surprise, he took a massive leap onto the city rooftops before jumping back towards Aurora's home. "Then I can tell you about my life and where I am really from." 3 years later. 3 years have gone by since Naruto had began his life in Naples with Aurora, but things could not be better for the blonde from another dimension. Considering not many months after Naruto shared his true past with Aurora, the two quickly fell in love and even a year prior got married, which resulted in Aurora taking the last name Uzumaki. However, long before their official marriage the two did have a child out of wedlock. A boy by the name of Giorno Uzumaki, who took mostly after his father in looks and his mother in personality and had just turned 3 years old. However, that was not their only child of the Uzumaki family. Considering Aurora was pregnant and was due to give birth within the next few weeks to a girl. Aurora was ecstatic to finally have a girl and had already decided upon the name of Asia. This of course filled Naruto with incredible amounts of joy, and even if he could find a way to return home, he was at the point where he wanted to stay with his new family. So he stopped trying to find ways to return to his old dimension almost 3 years ago, around the birth of his first child. Currently the young family was in their new and larger home outside of Naples that was further into the countryside. Considering with the growth of their family along with the wealth, Naruto was making off writing new versions of Icha Icha Paradise. Based off his and Aurora's life together, the family was quite well off. Aurora herself was busy rocking Giorno on a small wooden rocking chair while she quietly worked on knitting a pink blanket for Asia. Meanwhile, Naruto was off to the side writing a new chapter for his next book, but he couldn't help himself from stopping and looking to his wife and son. You know I didn't become Hokage and my life didn't go the way I planned, but I wouldn't change a single thing. Naruto mused within his own thoughts, while a gruff voice chuckled in response. You've done well for yourself, brat. Your parents and teachers would be proud. Kurama replied softly. You know, I wonder if I should start training Giorno and eventually Asia. They should have chakra thanks to me, but something is off with both of them. I can feel something inside of Giorno and even Asia. It's a power that neither I or Aurora have and I'm curious to what it is. And perhaps some training would do some good and we could even discover the anomaly within your children. Considering I feel the power you speak of as well. Maybe it's something to do with this world. After all, there is still so much neither of us know about this dimension. Hey, honey. Aurora suddenly spoke up, which made the blonde look up to his wife and take a hold on his inner dialogue. What's the matter, Aurora? Naruto asked, as he could see the obvious discomfort on Aurora's face. Asia is coming. Aurora yelled loudly, which made Naruto leap out of his chair in surprise. Shit. The father cursed in response. Shit. Giorno mimicked happily as he clapped his hands together. Aurora glared at her husband with a death glare he didn't know a kinder-hearted spirit like her could make. Get me to the hospital before I send you to God to repent for your sins. Aurora ordered in a stern voice. You don't have to tell me twice. Naruto replied before making an all-too-familiar hand sign and created a clone to grab Giorno while he picked Aurora up in his arms. Let's get going. Shit, shit, shit. Giorno repeated happily, which caused Aurora to growl and smack her husband as he carried her off to the hospital. 12 years later, 12 years have passed since Asia was born and the growth of the Uzumaki family had stopped as Aurora and Naruto didn't want any more children at the moment. However, in the past 12 years the Uzumaki has changed greatly. Naruto was now currently 32 and had kept his young muscular physique, but his hair had grown much longer to mimic his old teacher Jiraiya. Naruto felt this was fitting as the man's books helped propel Naruto into becoming the most successful author in the world. So keeping his hair in this fashion was a way for Naruto to pay tribute to the man. However, Naruto's fame wasn't the only thing that had risen over the years. Considering he trained daily and was now at a point where he would be considered a god in his previous dimension and even more so in his current home. Next came Giorno, who was now 15 and had grown into a young and ambitious young man. One who values his family and those around him, which were traits he obviously inherited from both his parents. Then there was Asia, who was now 12 and was practically a carbon clone of her mother in both personality and looks. However, she did have a small spark of Naruto's goofy and mischievous behavior sprinkled into her. Finally there was Aurora Uzumaki, who had perished when she stumbled across a drug deal gone south within the city only a week ago. This event devastated the entire Uzumaki family and explained why the 3 remaining members of the family were all standing over Aurora's grave in mourning. Naruto balled his fists as he felt the same feelings of hurt and suffering as when he lost Jiraiya. The blonde could even hear the words of Nagato echoing throughout his mind. Justice comes from vengeance, but that justice only brings more vengeance. Naruto wanted to find those responsible and make them pay for taking his wife and mother of his children from him. However, he knew that wasn't a route he could take. Instead he merely glanced down to his children. Asia was sobbing at the loss of her mother, and who could blame her? Giorno on the other hand had a hard and determined look on his face. This world filled with hate, drugs, pain and sin. The eldest of the Uzumaki children began softly while he gripped his fists and tears rolled down his cheeks. Something as foolish as disputes over drugs cost the life of a true saint in this world. That's inexcusable and is why I will join the passion. I will climb the ranks and demolish the origination from the ground up. Then I will rebuild that organization and use it as a tool to change the city and world for the better. Just like Kachan would have wanted. Naruto was surprised by his eldest son but closed his eyes and smiled softly at his conviction. As it truly was the best way to honor Aurora and avenge her death. I have more power than any man could dream of. Naruto began softly while he brought both of his children in for a one-armed hug. However, I will take over the passion and use it as an organization to honor Aurora's ideals and dreams. And I will protect you too with everything I have. That's my promise and I never go back on my promise. 1 year later, 1 year has gone by since Aurora's death and Naruto's promise to take over passion. A goal which Naruto accomplished in only a few weeks, as with his near godlike abilities, not a single person posed any sort of challenge to his power whatsoever. That of course meant for the last year Naruto had been operating as the new boss of the passion and was working to make the organization more in line with Aurora's ideals of bettering humanity. He started with eliminating all illegal activities and removed anyone who disagreed with his new vision of the gangster organization. It was a rough start at first, but with some help from his newly appointed and trusted capos. The passion has made great strides in bettering the country of Italy and slowly reaching out into other nations and cities. However, the passion still kept a firm grasp on their power to better uphold the peace that Naruto was trying to create. Though at this time Naruto was within his office and overlooking his top two men. One which was his son Giorno, but the other was another young man by the name of Bruno Bacciarati. Both of whom were waiting silently at their leader's desk. "So have the preparations been set?" Naruto asked in a strong and commanding voice. Bruno nodded and took a slight bow. "Yes boss, Abakio has the target with him and is secured. Meanwhile Narancia and Mista have all the preparations set." Naruto nodded with a pleased expression and turned to his eldest child. "And what about the package?" Giorno nodded. "I managed to obtain the package this morning father." "Excellent work boys." Naruto praised with a goofy grin while he was practically shaking with excitement. "Asia is going to love her surprise 13th birthday party." "Yes that's right, Naruto Uzumaki. Arguably the most powerful individual alive and the leader of the most expansive and powerful organization. Was using his abilities and resources to plan a preteen birthday party and as Kurama would say, once a Dumbus always a Dumbus." Giorno Uzumaki was currently alone with his father Naruto Uzumaki in his father's private study. Bruno had just recently left to help with the final preparations for Asia's birthday party, while Giorno had stayed behind to speak with his father. However, neither father or son was doing much talking, as Giorno was watching his father move his fingers along a large bookcase he had acquired from the previous boss of the Passion after killing the man and taking his organization. Though while Naruto rummaged through the bookcase, Giorno took notice to his father's appearance. Naruto had his long spiky hair tied back into a massive ponytail, while he wore a rather elegant slim black suit that was left unbuttoned to reveal a small amount of his chest. However, what really got Giorno was his father's face, which was not the face of a man in his early 30s, but instead Naruto appeared to be in his 20s. This was mainly due to his Uzumaki heritage helping slow his aging process and giving him a younger appearance. "Now where is that book at?" Naruto grumbled in a slightly annoyed tone as he rubbed his chin. "Father, can I help you with what you're looking for?" Giorno asked respectfully while he stood before his father's desk. Naruto waved his son off without turning to his direction. "No that's okay Giorno, but thanks for offering to help." Giorno frowned softly and studied his father as he slowly noticed a shift in his father once the man took over the Passion. He first attributed this strange behavior to the loss of his wife and Giorno's mother Aurora finally taking its toll. Considering he no longer had the driving force of taking over the Passion to distract him. However, that didn't seem like what was wrong and made Giorno wonder what was really wrong with his father. "Are you sure there isn't anything I can help you with father?" Giorno asked while he took a slight step towards his father. "Or maybe we could just talk. Do you have anything on your mind?" Naruto smiled softly and turned to his eldest child and slowly walked over to the boy before resting a hand on his shoulder. "Everything is fine Giorno. I can sense your emotions and there is no need to worry about anything." Naruto began softly while displaying his trademark and infectious grin to his son. "I'm just doing a bit of research that's been bugging me recently, but it's not that important. What is important is little Asia's birthday party. So why don't you head down to the bistro and make sure everything is ready? After all I don't fully trust Narancia and Mista to not mess things up some way." Giorno chuckled at his father's remark. "Yes they can be idiots at times, but I'll go make sure everything is ready for Asia." Naruto nodded. "You're a good brother and son Giorno. You make me very proud." The boss of the Passion declared before giving his son a strong hug. Returning the hug Giorno smiled. "Thank you father." Naruto backed away with a proud grin and watched his son leave his office. Then as the door to Naruto's office closed the blonde sighed and looked up. "We have some good kids Aurora." Naruto mumbled softly while he slowly walked back to the bookcase he was searching through. Quickly grinning wide as he found the particular book he was searching for. "There you are." Next without wasting any time Naruto dashed over to his desk and began to read through the book. Then for the next 10 minutes he began to skim his way through each page while absorbing as much information as he possibly could. Meanwhile his facial features shifted from interest to surprise to ultimately a look of displeasure. "I don't like what this could imply." Naruto began softly while his hands were folded and his blue eyes glared down onto the book left open on his desk. "This is quite unexpected." Kurama pointed out in a gruff tone while Naruto simply nodded. However, what could have the father of Asia and Giorno in such a sour mood? Well the explanation links back to when Naruto took over the Passion almost a year ago. During that time Naruto had finally got a glimpse of the power that was inside of his eldest child Giorno. At the time Naruto didn't understand what the power was but knew it was some ability that allowed Giorno to convert inorganic objects into living organisms. A strange and bizarre ability that Naruto didn't know the origin of at first. Meanwhile Asia showed uses of her own power, which was some miraculous healing ability that would make Sakura and even Tsunade envious. However, once Naruto made his way to the top of Passion he discovered these were called sacred gears, which were also known as God's artifacts. These were items with powerful abilities bestowed onto humans by the god Aurora always talked about. Apparently the former boss of the Passion had an obsession with them, which showed with all the books and journals Naruto had acquired from the man. This of course meant Giorno and Asia, along with a majority of Naruto's top capos, all are in possession of these powerful artifacts. Though even more importantly Naruto was now learning that God was real and not just God, but also devils, angels, fallen angels and every other race he could find information on was. Though this revelation wasn't what troubled Naruto, as what really made him upset was that he had never seen anything besides a human, and he feared what these groups could have on his vision for creating a world of peace. Considering the former leader of Passion had a decent amount of information on these groups, and Naruto didn't like a majority of what are found. As all the supernatural groups he found information on seemed to be incredibly powerful and at odds with one another, while humanity was simply stuck in the middle of everything. So it made his dream of a peace-filled world slightly more complicated. Perhaps I should seek some of these groups out. Naruto mumbled while speaking to the fox inside his mind. Determine if they are a threat or could become potential allies. According to Diavolo's research, he had only found individuals with sacred gears and had no contact with any supernatural groups. However, he never sought after them like he did with the scared gears. So they are surely real. Well, let's think over this, Naruto. You've been playing things safe since you arrived in this dimension. You never train your techniques outside of spars in your mind with me, and you only train your physical body with workouts. This is probably why no group has found you, as for the most part you've done a good job at flying under the radar. But this wasn't intentional, I wasn't hiding from all these supernatural groups. I was just trying to ensure nobody placed any unwanted attention on me and my family. Naruto shot back in a plain voice. I know, but this places us in a good position, Naruto. I doubt these groups know anything about you. So it allows us to gather information and act on how we see fit. I say we use some of your high-ranking capos to gather intel on different factions and go from there. That could be a good plan, I'll speak with Giorno and the rest after Asia's party. Naruto mumbled softly while he closed the book and stood to his feet. Making his way out of his office and towards the location of Asia's surprise party. But Asia kneeled in prayer with her hands clasped together and pressed to her chest. The youngest of the Uzumaki family was currently before her mother's grave and spending some time in prayer with her deceased mother. This was of course something Asia had started doing on special occasions like birthdays or anniversaries, as it allowed the girl to feel close to her mother in some fashion. Watching the girl with a protective gaze was one of her father's most trusted subordinates, Leona Bacchio. The latter of whom had his hands in his pockets and was standing quietly a few feet away from the girl. I'm sorry, Lady Asia. The gangster began softly while he noticed the girl remained in prayer. I don't wish to rush you, but we do need to get moving. Asia remained silent for another brief moment but eventually uttered an amen before standing to her feet and turning to Abacchio. No need for apologies, big brother. The young blonde replied with a kind smile while showing how she treated the gangster like an elder sibling instead of her father's subordinate. In fact, Asia had a close sibling relationship with all of her father's top capos. However, these relationships never undermined her relationship with her blood brother Giorno, who she loved just as much as her father. Abacchio sighed and lowered his head while walking away and motioning for Asia to follow him. He would never admit it, but he enjoyed having Asia treat him like a sibling. Though the gangster would rather die than admit that to anyone, especially someone like Mr. Fugo or Narancia. Hey big brother. Asia called out while she ran right beside the man. You never told me where we are going today after visiting mom. Abacchio glanced down to Asia with a slight smirk. I know. The gangster replied while he and Asia left the main gateway of the cemetery. Then as he looked forward without speaking again, it made Asia pout and look up. Well, are you gonna tell me where we are going? The daughter of the most powerful man alive asked. Nope. Abacchio answered without even looking to Asia. Why not? Asia whined sadly while her eyes began to water and she looked at the side of her protector's face. Noticing the man was starting to sweat. The boss told me not to. Abacchio replied simply while trying his hardest to avoid eye contact with Asia. Considering she possessed a power that even her father couldn't defeat. The all-powerful puppy dog eyes. Please tell me, big brother Abacchio. Asia begged while she reached out and tugged on Abacchio's arm. I cannot, Lady Asia. Abacchio stuttered nervously. The boss gave me an order and I must obey without question. Asia huffed and folded her arms. But do you always have to follow daddy's orders? Lady Asia, I owe everything including my life to your father. I will follow his orders without question and serve him until the day I die. Abacchio began with conviction in his voice that surprised Asia, as she had never heard words like this from the man. My dream and ambition is to follow the boss and protect him and everyone he holds dear. I won't rest until his vision for a better world is achieved. Asia smiled softly at how much respect Abacchio held for her father, which displayed just how amazing Naruto truly was. You know, Abacchio, I have a dream as well. Asia declared softly while she looked up into the sky. I want to follow my mom's dream and move to the Vatican City and join the church to serve God. Abakio glanced down to Asia and smiled softly at how innocent and kind the youngest Uzumaki was. That's an admirable dream, Lady Asia, but I don't think the boss would allow you to run off and join the church. You know how protective he is over you and even Giorno. Abakio pointed out, which made Asia slump over sadly. I know, but I'm hoping to convince Daddy to let me join the church soon. I think if I talk things out with him he will allow me to pursue my dream. Abakio pondered over Asia's words while the duo slowly approached the bistro owned by the Passion. The same bistro where Asia's surprise birthday party would be held. However, as the two approached they could clearly see both Narancia Gurga and Panakata Fugo. Both of whom were top capos in Naruto's organization. Asia, seeing the two individuals, waved happily and began to run in their direction. Narancia. Fugo. Asia yelled in an upbeat voice, which caught both gangsters off guard. Lady Asia. Fugo yelled in surprise while he watched the girl stop before him. Why, you're here early. Abakio sighed and rubbed the back of his head. Damn it, I got us here too quick. My bad. Fugo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. It's okay, Abakio, we can adjust our plans slightly. Asia tilted her head just a little and looked up to Narancia with her infamous and dreaded puppy dog eyes. This of course made the young gangster smile wide at Asia's look. Narancia, can you tell me what's going on? Asia asked in a sweet voice, while Abakio and Fugo's eyes grew wide. Please, big brother. Oh, we are setting up your birthday surprise. Narancia began before he was silenced by Fugo. The latter of whom grabbed Narancia's face and began to dig his fingers into his comrade's cheeks and mouth. You shit for brain, moron. Fugo yelled loudly while he slammed Narancia's head into a nearby light post. The boss wanted this as a surprise for Lady Asia. Dumbus. Abakio grumbled softly. I spent all day keeping this a secret and you cave in 3 seconds. If the boss or Giorno doesn't kill you, I will. Asia quickly held her hands up with a worried expression. Don't be mad at Narancia. I shouldn't have asked in the first place. Please don't hurt Narancia and I'll pretend to be completely surprised. Fugo glared at Narancia before looking to Asia and sighing. Considering the girl's worried expression was enough to calm his anger. Alright, Lady Asia, if that's what you wish. Fugo replied softly while letting his grip on Narancia go. Landing onto the ground and shaking himself to regain his composure, Narancia looked up to Asia with a wide smile. I'm sorry, Lady Asia. The young delinquent apologized, which made Asia nod in response. It's all forgiven, big brother, as long as you tell me what present I got for my birthday. Asia replied in a sweet voice. Oh, you got. Narancia began, but was silenced by Abakio's foot in his face. Stop talking, Dumbus. Abakio ordered in a stern voice, while also looking at Asia. And Lady Asia, please stop taking advantage of this idiot. Asia gave a friendly and innocent smile. I have no idea what you're talking about, big brother. Asia replied in a sly voice, as even though she was kind and sweet like her mother Aurora, Asia still inherited some of Naruto's trickster habits and personality. This of course caused Abakio to groan and roll his eyes at the girl's behavior. You know what, let's just go inside. The gangster began before pointing to Fugo and Narancia. You two run into the bistro and tell everyone to get ready because you see us coming. Fugo nodded and grabbed Narancia by the collar of his shirt before pulling him away and into the bistro. Then as the two disappeared into the restaurant, Abakio sighed and started to walk forward. Well, for that idiot's sake, I hope you're a good actor, Lady Asia. Abakio mumbled as he slowly approached the door to the bistro and held the door open for Asia. Asia grinned wide and bowed in respect to Abakio for holding the door for her. I'm in Uzumaki, Abakio. There isn't anything I can't do. Abakio smirked and watched Asia walk into the dark bistro. However, after a few short steps the lights bust to life and Asia was quickly bombarded with a loud cheer and group of familiar faces. Surprise, Asia. The collective members of the Passion yelled loudly, making the girl's eyes slightly water. Considering even though the surprise was ruined, she still appreciated the love and kindness taken for her sake. Everyone you shouldn't have. Asia began in a happy voice while she looked around the room to her family and friends. Noticing her brother Giorno was smiling wide while his friends and fellow capos were standing beside him. This group consisted of Bruno Bichirati, Narancia Gurga, Panakata Fugo and Guido Mista. Happy birthday, baby sister. Giorno spoke up happily. I hope today is everything you want it to be. Bruno nodded with a slight smirk. We really got you with this surprise for a change. Mista nodded and laughed loudly. You have no idea how hard it was to keep this a secret. Narancia chuckled nervously and rubbed the back of his head. Yup, super hard. Happy birthday, Lady Asia. Fugo sent a small glare directed at Narancia. Yeah, happy birthday. Abakio smirked and ruffled Asia's hair before walking further into the bistro. This of course allowed the girl to see the rest of the Passion and guests of the party. The first person she noticed was Trish Yuna, who was the previous boss's daughter and a current friend of Giorno and the new Passion. I hope you like the present I got you, Asia. Trish spoke up with a small wink directed at the girl. However, as Asia's eyes wandered even more, she saw the most surprising group at attendance of her party. This being the infamous La Squadra, which was the assassin group of the Passion led by Rosado Nero. Apparently her father had actually not only earned the respect of every single member of the group, but he had also taken them into his group of gangsters. This was mainly due to Naruto not being one to shy away from killing and assassination. Considering he was trained to be a shinobi who specialized in killing and assassination, so Naruto didn't have any problems with the group just as long as they didn't kill without good reason or motivation. Happy birthday. Rosado spoke up slowly while he relaxed at a table with the rest of his squad. All of whom sent a friendly wave to the daughter of their boss. Asia smiled and took a slight step forward, but before she could even move she was suddenly scooped into the loving arms of her father. Happy birthday my little angel. Naruto yelled happily as he affectionately rubbed his cheek into Asia's own. Asia giggled and wrapped her arms around her father's neck. Thank you for the party daddy. I love you so much. Naruto was beaming with joy as he held tightly onto his precious daughter. And I love you my little angel. How was your day with Abakio? Asia grinned with a smile to match her father's. It was wonderful. Abakio took me out for gelato and then we went to go see mom. I'm glad you had a good day, but I have something special to show you. Naruto declared as he quickly placed Asia back onto the ground. So wait right here and I'll go fetch it for you. Asia watched her father dash away and smiled to everyone around her. She had no friends her own age, but through the Passion she had 13 older brother figures and 1 older sister figure. The Passion was her family and she loved every single one of them and they loved her in return. Asia. Giorno began softly while he approached the girl and bent over to give her a hug. Abakio told me you went to go see mother. I'm sorry I didn't go with you. Asia giggled and hugged her older brother back. It's okay Giorno. No need to apologize for something like that. Giorno backed away with a smile and playfully ruffled Asia's hair. You're so sweet and kind Asia. You're just like mother. So are you Giorno. Asia giggled loudly while she tilted her head innocently. I'm back. Naruto declared in a loud voice while he ran back to Asia with a wrapped gift in his hands. Asia looked to her father with a curious look as the gift was rectangular in shape and looked to be about the same size as a book. Is that my gift from you daddy? Naruto nodded with a goofy grin and handed the gift over to Asia. The latter of whom accepted the gift with a skeptical look. Yup and you're gonna love it. Asia felt the gift and confirmed through the wrapping paper that it was in fact a book. So considering who her father was this made Asia slightly nervous. Daddy this isn't one of your perverted books is it? Naruto quickly held his hands up. No it's nothing like that. The father quickly defended as ever since Asia learned about Naruto's Icha paradise she had labeled her father as a pervert. However, despite that she still loved him the same as she did before. Oh that's good. Asia sighed in relief. I was sure you were trying to turn me into a pervert like you. Naruto slumped over at that remark from his daughter, knowing Jiraiya was laughing in the afterlife at his expense. Considering Naruto would always call the man a pervert and now the tables have turned on the leader of the Passion. Don't worry Asia. Giorno began as he leaned in with a smile. I won't let father corrupt you, but you really should open your gift. Asia nodded and began to open the wrapping around the gift. Her eyes growing wide as she noticed the gift was a Bible. However, this particular Bible was special above any others. Since this Bible had the name Aurora Argento embroidered onto the black leather cover. His is. Asia began slowly while her voice hitched and her fingers ran over the cover of the holy book. Mom's Bible. Giorno smiled and watched his sister begin to slightly sob as the particular Bible meant more to her than anything. Since that was the Bible their mother would read to them from almost every night. In fact Asia's faith was instilled into her from Aurora while Giorno never really took to the religion. Giorno had the idea to restore Aurora's old Bible and give it to you. Naruto explained while he bent down and leaned into his daughter. I wanted to give you a pony, but Giorno's idea was better. I could still get the pony though. Asia clutched the book close to her chest and closed her eyes. I love it. The girl mumbled softly while she felt even closer to her mother than ever. But I love you too even more. Naruto and Giorno both smiled at the small 13-year-old. They would give her the world if they could and would do anything to protect her smile. We love you too Asia. Naruto began while he stood to his feet and looked to Narancia. But it's time we finally get this party started for real. Narancia grinned and placed a CD into a boombox and a song began to play loudly throughout the bistro. This of course caused Naruto to walk forward and begin to dance while Narancia, Fugo and Mista began to copy their boss as backup dancers. Asia watched her father with wide eyes as it was torture for any child to see their parents act embarrassingly in public. However, this wasn't just any kind of torture. No this was a torture dance. However, Asia wasn't like most children and quickly ran over to her father and began to poorly mimic his dance moves. This of course caused the father and daughter to share a glance, smile and ultimately a laugh. House of Grimy. Alana Grimy was known for being the eldest daughter of the House of Bale and having the nickname of the brown-haired ruined princess. She was also known for her incredible power that matched her almost unending beauty. However, nowadays she was simply Alana Grimy. The head of the Grimy family after her husband Zeodicus Grimy has fallen deathly ill and died a few years prior. Unfortunately, it appeared that her late husband managed to leave her in quite the sticky situation after his passing. This was due to a certain contract that Zeodicus had made with the head of the Phoenix family before his passing. "I'm sorry, Arias." Alana began softly while the woman gazed over the contract within her grasp. "This contract looks near unbreakable." Arias looked down with a disappointed look as she knew as the future head of her family, she would have to make sacrifices. She however didn't expect to be married off to a pompous ass like Riser Phoenix. "But you're the head of the House of Grimy, mother. Can't you break the contract?" Riaz asked desperately. Alana sighed and shook her head. "Unfortunately, that power only resides with those who signed the contract, Riaz. And since your father is dead, that power rests with Lord Phoenix and him alone. So I'm doomed to marry someone I don't love." Riaz mumbled sadly, which made Alana frown. "I'm sorry, Riaz, but don't give up. The marriage is years away and Serziches might be able to help you in some way." Riaz perked up with a small glimpse of hope as not all was lost. "You're right, mother. I can't give up yet." Then Alana smiled at her daughter and began to walk off. "Come, Riaz, let's forget about this for now and go get something to eat." Naruto's office. Sitting behind his desk with a neutral expression, Naruto looked around to his top capos. All of whom were standing in front of his desk and were waiting for him to speak. It was only an hour after Asia's party and Naruto had immediately called a meeting to talk to each man about their new objectives. "Giorno." Naruto began, which made the boy stand straight with a fierce gaze. Giorno was Naruto's second in command and was the capo over eliminating the drug trade within Italy. However, where Giorno truly shines was in his combat abilities. Since he had been trained by his father to be a shinobi and possessed Jonin-level chakra, speed and strength. Giorno even knew some of his father's signature jutsuses, making him very deadly in a fight. Though he also was in control of a scared gear called Golden Experience, which was a scared gear in the shape of gloves that can give life and transform objects. Bruno. Naruto continued while he looked to the next capo under his power. Bruno was an interesting individual who was in charge of eliminating human trafficking. His sacred gear was called the Zipper Gauntlets, which were two gauntlets that grant the ability to form zip-like constructs on anything he strikes. Babakio. Naruto called out, making the man nod in recognition. Babakio was Naruto's man for eliminating police corruption and had the sacred gear replay screen. This allowed Babakio to create a screen that could play back people as long as he was near where the person was. Mista. Naruto moved on, which made the man salute his boss. Mista was responsible for all illegal weapon trade, which was ironic considering his sacred gear called Outlaw Ricochet. This was a gun that could fire bullets that could ricochet from anything around him and even bounce off the particles in the air. Narancia. Naruto spoke firmly, making the boy smile in response. Narancia was in charge of protecting the citizens under the Passion's protection. His sacred gear was called Red Sky Devil. This was an independent tiny plane that Narancia could control and even use to scan levels of carbon dioxide in the air. Fugo. Naruto named out, which made Fugo adjust the sleeve of his shirt. Fugo was responsible for recruitment and was the man to get past if you wanted into the Passion. He was in possession of a sacred gear called Toxic Phantom. This sacred gear was a remote-controlled cloud of poisonous gas that Fugo could use to kill his opponents from a distance. And finally Rosado. Naruto finished while he looked at the leader of his group of assassins. Rosado's main job was to eliminate individuals who needed to be killed. Considering Naruto knew no matter what the world would always have men like Danzo, Madara and Diavolo. So having a group of elite assassins to take those kind of people out was beneficial. Rosado's sacred gear is called Metallica and works by having tiny remote-controlled partials of iron that can enter an individual's bloodstream and do a number of things to someone once inside. "I've called you here to talk about what I've discovered." Naruto began in a sour mood while he folded his hands together. "Going through Diavolo's research, I've learned much more about the sacred gears that all of you and a majority of the Passion have. However, I've also discovered that God, devils, angels, fallen angels and much more are all real." The entire room was slightly surprised as none in the room was not one to really buy into religion. "Are you serious, boss?" Bruno asked, speaking for everyone present. Naruto nodded softly and closed his eyes. "I've prepared everything I've gathered into copies using my shadow clones to debrief you all on what little I've learned. However, from here you all have new assignments within the organization. Bruno and Giorno, you two are responsible for learning everything about the underworld and devils. Fugo and Mista, you two will look into the fallen angels. Narancia and Abacchio, I'm having you two responsible for gathering information on God and angels. Lastly Rosado, I'm having you and La Squadra look into multiple different supernatural groups that are not as major as the first three. Father, why are we doing this? Giorno asked suddenly while holding his hands out. We've never seen any of these groups. So why don't we just focus on bettering humanity? Because these groups could be a danger to the better world we want to create. So we need to gather intel and decide what action to take. Naruto explained in a matter-of-fact tone. Rosado chuckled. So if they are hostile, are you saying we might have to fight God? Naruto nodded. Yes, there is a chance we might fight these groups if they are a threat. For the meantime, I don't want any of you making contact with any of these groups. Is that understood? Naruto asked, his voice and gaze giving a commanding tone that left no room for discussion. We understand, boss, and we won't let you down. Fugo spoke up while taking a bow of respect. Abacchio nodded with a smirk. If you want to pick a fight with angels and devils, I'll follow you into heaven and hell. The capo declared, which was a sentiment shared among the group. Hey boss. Narancia began as he held his finger up. What are you going to be doing? Naruto smiled and relaxed back into his chair. I'll be using my clones to keep moving the passion forward and pick up the holes left by you seven. Naruto explained while he patted the stacks of folders on his desk. Each of you grab a folder and get reading. Since you each have a lot of work to do. Each capo stepped forward and did as they were told. This caused Naruto to smirk and stand to his feet. Considering it was getting late and he had a nightly ritual that he needed to keep up on. I'll leave you boys to your assignments. Naruto declared before leaving the office. Asia's bedroom, laying in her large and elegant bed, Asia watched the door to her room open to reveal her father. The latter of whom quickly walked to her bedside with a grin on his face. Are you ready for bed, my little princess? Naruto asked softly while he pulled the covers over top of Asia. Shaking her head, Asia gave her father a sweet-eye smile. Nope, not yet. Naruto laughed and kissed his daughter's forehead. How about now? Asia shook her head happily. Almost. The girl chipped, which was odd for Naruto. Considering he would always tuck Asia in and give her a goodnight kiss, and that was it. So this raised the man's curiosity. What else do you need? Naruto asked. Well, I want to ask your blessing to do something. Asia revealed, which surprised Naruto. Anything for you? Naruto replied instantly. Asia grinned and slightly held herself up on her forearms. I want to join the church in the Vatican City and serve God. No. Naruto cut in sharply, tearing down his daughter's dreams and ambitions in one moment. Why not? Asia asked in a slightly hurt voice, as she wasn't used to Naruto telling her no. I've recently learned things that make me uneasy around the church, Asia. I also can't spend all my time watching over you, and you never did any shinobi training like Giorno, so you can't protect yourself. Naruto explained in a matter-of-fact tone. That's not true. Asia yelled back firmly. I know the 3 basic academy jutsuses and Giorno taught me wall and water walking. I even was going to try and work on some medical ninjutsu. And yet you still can't fight for yourself like Giorno can. Naruto pointed out while taking a deep sigh. Why is this so important? You're a member of the church here in Naples. Asia looked down and traced the covers of her bed using her finger. Well, Mom always told me her dream was to join the church in the Vatican City and serve God. Well, it's my dream too, and since Mom never got to see that dream through, I will live that dream for the both of us. Asia then looked up with tears in her eyes that broke Naruto's heart. Please Dad, let me do this. Don't crush my and Mom's dream. That was it, Asia had hit Naruto's 2 and only weaknesses. The first was mentioning Aurora, while the second was seeing Asia cry. If I let you do this, I have rules. Naruto began, which surprised Asia. I'll do anything, Dad. Naruto sighed and held a finger up. First, you will go by the name Asia Argento and never tell anyone you're my daughter. I'm a famous author, but more so I am the boss of the passion. So that could make you a target for anyone wanting to get to me. Understood? Asia replied while Naruto held up another finger. Second, if you sense any danger at all, you will leave and contact me, Giorno, or any of my capos immediately. Naruto instructed sternly. Okay, I can do that, but I'm just joining the church. Asia pointed out. Heard. Naruto began as he ignored Asia's comment. You will call me at least once a week. I'll call you twice a week. Asia declared while she lunged into her father and hugged the man. Naruto slowly ran his hand through Asia's long and soft blonde hair. And finally, don't make me regret allowing you to do this. Don't worry, Daddy. The last thing I would want is to make you upset. Asia spoke up softly while she tightened her hold onto her father. Naruto didn't say anything in response, but instead just held onto his daughter. Thinking to himself that he promised to never seek vengeance, and even though he lost Jiraiya and Aurora, he has held onto his ideals. However, he knew Asia was his one exception. Considering if something were to befall his precious daughter, Naruto would tear apart both heaven and hell for retribution. 1 year later, Asia age 14. It has been 1 year since Asia had left home and joined the church within the Vatican City. In that time Naruto had taken the passion to new heights by expanding his organization's power and influence across the entirety of Europe. It was a slow process mainly due to Naruto being subtle in how he expanded the passion, as he wanted to attract the least amount of attention as possible. Though with governments, business and much more under his control, Europe was practically his. So now he was looking towards expanding into the Americas, Africa and eventually the rest of the civilized world. Though for the meantime Naruto had taken a small break from expanding the passion, as Kurama had brought some new revelations to his attention only a few weeks ago. Apparently Naruto's body had slowly began to change in ways in which Naruto didn't foresee. According to Kurama, for the last few years Naruto's healing factor and Uzumaki heritage had been increasing in power and at first was almost unnoticeable. In fact, Kurama just attributed the slight change to a mixture of Naruto's new environment along with having both halves of Hagoromo's power. However, it was slowly becoming clear to Kurama that wasn't the case. Considering Naruto's body had evolved into some type of perfect life from giving Naruto a body that was vastly superior in durability to any human. Then even more impressive was the growth of his cells and lack of any cellular decay, which Kurama theorized would expand Naruto's lifespan by thousands of years. This of course caused the pair to be left wondering what could have caused this change within the blonde. Currently Naruto was seated in his office with Kurama trying to discuss what could have happened. Maybe this world has some weird side effects to my body. I mean, I am from another dimension. Naruto spoke up while he reclined back in his massive leather chair. Kurama swayed his tails around, as with Naruto's newly improved body, it was possible for him to freely leave and enter Naruto's body without any harm. This of course only further proved the change the boy underwent and was why the nine-tailed fox was standing in front of Naruto's desk while being around the size of a large dog. I've been doing a lot of thinking, kid, over your situation and I've come to a conclusion. Kurama began in a matter-of-fact tone. Let's establish that with your Uzumaki heritage, Jinchuriki status and Sage Chakra, you already had more power and factors that improved your body and lifespan. However, when you were floating into that empty void after defeating Kaguya, you were surrounded by infinite power and energy. I don't remember anything about that dimensional void or my time within it. Naruto admitted. Well, I do, and let me tell you, Naruto, there was power all around you and it was rapidly destroying your body. In fact, it took everything from my Sasuke and your own power to keep you alive and allow you to escape. However, I theorize that you absorbed some of that dimensional power and it slowly melded into your body and eventually evolved your previous human form to your current state. One that is, from my understanding, the pinnacle of human evolution. So basically I absorbed some unknown stuff unknowingly and it made my body more durable than before and increased my lifespan 100 times over. Naruto summarized, to which Kurama simply nodded. I have no proof to back my theory, as we don't know how to return to that gap in dimension safely, nor should we try. However, we shouldn't dwell on this too much and instead count our blessings. After all, you live much longer than you originally would have and I get more freedom. It's a win for both of us. Kurama boasted with a large toothy grin. I guess you're right, but I wonder if Yorno and Asia will be affected like I was. They do have my DNA, so it's possible they could have the same phenomenon happen to them. Though for now they seem to be like I was before my body underwent this change. Naruto pointed out. It's possible and something worth looking into. Though I'm far more interested in something else. Kurama admitted, which made Naruto raise his brow in interest. Which is? Well, in the war you were able to share my chakra with the Shinobi Alliance. So what if you could share your chakra or cells with others? Kurama began in a matter-of-fact tone, while his red-slitted eyes had a small shine to them. Humans in this world are the weakest faction to our knowledge and are nothing like they are in our dimension. Though you've clearly evolved to something that even surpassed humans from the elemental nations. So what if you could use your chakra or cells to improve our human allies to better stack our odds against the angels and devils? I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Hell, even Madara was able to take Hashirama's cells to improve himself. Naruto folded his hands together and gazed at the fox. You're sounding like Orochimaru there, Kurama, but I understand where you're coming from. Humans in this world are weak and need sacred gears to even fight on a somewhat even playing field. So if we could find a way to share my DNA, it would elevate humans to a stronger standing amongst the factions. Now the question remains, if we can share your DNA, how do we go about doing so? The chakra beast asked, while Naruto frowned and scratched his head. I could use clones to research some ideas, but Naruto took a pause in response to the door of his office receiving a knock. This caused Naruto to adjust himself and look at the door with a hard expression. Enter. Slowly the door opened to reveal Giorno and Mist Ah, both of whom were coming for their monthly report on the respective factions they were observing. However, as they entered the room they made quick notice to Kurama without any fuss. Considering they both knew about Naruto's past and the beast he held for so many years. Kurama slowly walked over to Naruto's side and stood by Naruto's desk, which only added to the blonde's intimidation as the boss of the passion. Since Naruto was already a powerful and imitating figure, but having a nine-tailed demon fox by your side only amplified that appeal. Father. Kurama. Giorno mumbled softly while he dropped to his knee. I've come to share what Bruno and I have gathered on the devil faction. Boss. Lord Kurama. Mr. spoke up while he also took a knee. I have some news that me and Fugo have managed to obtain on the fallen angels. Naruto motioned for both of the boys to stand. Rise and share with me what you've learned so far. Standing to their feet, both boys shared a look before Giorno walked forward and handed a folder to his father. The latter of whom opened the document and began to read in silence. Me and Bruno have learned a great deal of devil lifestyle in their hierarchy. Apparently there is something called the 72 pillars of high-class devil noble families. These are 72 noble families of pure-blood devils. However, after a large-scale conflict with the angels and fallen angels, over half of their numbers were completely eliminated. There is also lesser devils among their ranks in the underworld, but the leaders are a group of 4 individuals referred to as the 4 Great Satans. Giorno explained, while Naruto nodded and tapped the folder he was reading from. Your report mentions the lifespan and some abilities of some devils, but I'm curious. What is this evil pieces you mention in your report? Naruto asked, as he was getting ahead of his son. Well, father, due to the devils losing so many of their own, they began to create evil pieces to replenish their numbers by reincarnating other groups like humans into devils. They do this by a set of chess pieces called evil pieces, which are made from crystals available in a location called Agree's Island. Giorno explained, while Kurama smirked. Interesting. The fox commented, which made Naruto to glance to his lifelong comrade. What are you thinking, Kurama? Naruto asked, while both boys watched a duo from another dimension share a glance. Well, these evil pieces are more so the crystals from Agree's Island, might be the missing link to the conversation we were having earlier. Kurama revealed cryptically, while he turned to look at Giorno with a toothy grin. Giorno, could you and Bruno possibly obtain some of these crystals for me and your father? Giorno rested his hand over his chest and took a bow. I'll make it my top priority, Kurama. Naruto observed his son and slowly closed the folder in his hands while he began to think to himself. Kurama was obviously wanting to create his own version of evil pieces, but instead of creating devils, he was wanting to create evolved humans with improved bodies, lifespans and most importantly a source of chakra. Giorno, make sure you're careful in obtaining these crystals. Naruto spoke up while he rested the folder on his desk. Obtaining them are important for reasons I'll share later, but they are not worth losing 2 of my best men over. In fact, if you could find any alternative methods to finding them, I'd recommend using the safest method possible. I understand, father. Giorno replied, as he knew his father was looking out for his best interests. But remember that I'm no pushover. Naruto smiled and shook his head. I know, Giorno, but what do you have for me, Mr. Stepping forward, the gunslinger handed a folder to his boss, which Naruto opened like the last. Not as much as what Giorno and Bruno found, but I learned the fallen angels have a group called Grigori. They are a group of defected angels that have taken in exiled church members and humans with sacred gears. Honestly, they sound like a group a lot like what Diavolo made the passion for. Naruto nodded with a neutral expression. Yes, they sound similar to the ideals the old boss of my organization had. Well, something that sets them apart is that one of their main leaders is more well known and is a fallen angel by the name of Azazel. More so, their group apparently has experimented with the creation of artificial sacred gears. Mr. revealed while he folded his arms. And that's all I've learned so far, boss. Naruto closed the folder given to him and placed it over top the one Giorno gave him. Well, good work, Mr. This is all very helpful. Though you both are dismissed, as I need to speak with Kurama in private. Mr. nodded and took a bow. I'll keep working. Giorno smiled and took a bow as well. And I'll make sure to obtain some of those crystals for you. Naruto grinned and watched the two leave his office. Then as Naruto and Kurama were left alone, the blonde from another dimension stood to his feet and walked over to the window of his office. So these evil pieces and even those artificial scared gears prove that we could in fact create something capable of transferring my biology and changing our allies into improved humans. Naruto mused out loud while his eyes gazed out into the peaceful city of Naples. I take it that you were thinking the same thing. Joining Naruto's side, Kurama smiled wide and his tails began to sway wildly in the air from anticipation. There is no shinobi in this dimension, but we could turn our passion into a new generation of shinobi. That would be one way to greatly increase humanity's standing among all the other factions. Naruto began in a matter-of-fact tone, but at the same time had a slight frown. However, at the same time we would have to be cautious in sharing such a power. As it could be something that could be used for evil fairly easily. You're right, but for now we should focus on making our own version of evil pieces. Kurama pointed out while his crimson eyes glanced up to the boss of the passion. Then we can worry about who we give such a power to. Naruto smiled and turned around to his desk, while at the same time the phone on said desk began to ring. This of course caused the most powerful man alive to perk up and practically jump onto the phone. Considering it was a personal phone that only one person in the world had the number to. "Hello, princess." Naruto shouted happily while he clicked a button to turn the phone onto speaker. "Daddy?" Asia replied back with just as much enthusiasm and joy as her father. Kurama let a small chuckle escape his lips and he stalked his way closer to the phone. "Hey, how are you kid?" "Ah, hi Kurama." Asia quickly greeted, which made the fox grin. "I'm doing well. How are you and daddy?" "We are fine kid. Is the church treating you well?" Kurama asked while his tails whipped in the air violently. "I don't have to burn down that city or kill anyone, do I?" Asia shrieked and Naruto along with Kurama heard the girl fumble the phone she was holding. "No, no, no." Asia quickly replied in a nervous voice at Kurama's question. "The church treats me so well and I get to help so many people with the church. Please don't hurt anyone." Kurama chuckled once more as the fox had watched Asia grow since she was a baby and was quite protective over the girl. "Well, if they keep treating you well they shall avoid the wrath of the mighty Kurama." The chakra beast boasted in a proud tone with his head held high. "Well, there is nothing to worry about then Kurama," Asia declared in a happy voice. "But you and daddy should come visit soon. I miss you both so much." Naruto smiled and leaned close to the phone. "And I miss you my little angel. I'll make preparations to visit you soon. You promise?" Asia asked in an excited voice. "I promise sweetie." Naruto replied with a happy and goofy grin. "That's wonderful, I can't wait." Asia chirped in an excited voice as these days it was rare for the father and daughter to spend time together. "But I have to get back to work. I'll talk to you later daddy and Kurama." "Alright, take care and I'll see you soon." Naruto declared softly while the phone clicked off. "It's good to hear Asia is doing well. Aurora would be happy to know that." Kurama spoke up while Naruto smiled at a small portrait of his late wife. "Yeah, she would." 1 week later, Vatican City. Naruto was currently using the Academy transformation technique to disguise himself as an adult Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto did this for a number of reasons, but the main reason was to avoid anyone figuring out who he was and connecting him with Asia. The latter of whom was walking by his side in her nun outfit while a tiny one-tailed fox was held tightly in her arms. This fox was of course Kurama, who uses this form to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. "So princess, is there any good ramen places around here?" Naruto asked in a cheerful and goofy voice while using a carefree expression that had never once been made by the face of Sasuke Uchiha. In fact, Kurama couldn't help from snickering at seeing the stoic Uchiha having Naruto's personality and expressions. Not really, ramen isn't really a popular dish around here." Asia explained in a slightly sad tone as she knew her father loved his ramen. Naruto slumped over with a dark cloud over his body. "For a city priding themselves on serving God, it's blasphemy for there to be no place to serve ramen. Idiot." Kurama grumbled softly while he snuggled closely into Asia and began to sleep. Asia giggled and nudged her body into her father. "Ramen isn't in the Bible silly, but you would know that if you read the Bible like you're supposed to." Naruto rubbed the back of his head and chuckled. My bad." Asia smiled at her father. "It's okay daddy, I have plenty of ingredients to make you some ramen at my apartment." Naruto grinned wide and ruffled his daughter's hair while he leaned into the girl and gave her a one-armed hug by slinging his arm around her neck. "I love my little baby girl, what would I do without you?" Asia giggled as she felt her father rock her from side to side. "You'd be hopeless daddy. At this rate you'll need a new wife to take care of you." Naruto blushed at his daughter's declaration as finding a new wife had not once crossed his mind. I don't know about that sweetie." Asia giggled at her father's expense, but before she could say anything a crude cough caused the duo to look forward. Where a sister of the church with the appearance of a woman in her late 20s or early 30s with blue eyes and light blonde hair was glaring at Naruto. "It would be wise to unhand that girl pervert, she is pure and a daughter of God." The woman spoke up in a firm and commanding voice. Naruto glared at the woman but stopped for a moment to think over his situation. From the woman's appearance she was obviously affiliated with the church like Asia. Meanwhile Naruto was made to look like Sasuke, who had no parental similarities like Naruto did. So currently Naruto looked like a 30-year-old man with his hands wrapped around a 14-year-old girl. "I think you have the wrong idea here." Naruto began in a calm and calculated voice, showing how he had matured over the years. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha and I'm simply visiting Asia as I was friends with her late parents." The woman's glare shifted from Naruto and moved down to Asia. "Young sister, is this man telling the truth?" Asia bit her lip as she hated lying, and especially to a woman of the church. She tried telling herself that if Sasuke was alive and had met her, what Naruto was saying would be true. However, that wasn't the case and it made lying even harder for the young girl. Though she knew to make things easy, she would have to swallow her morals and ask for God's forgiveness later. "Yes. The youngest Uzumaki stuttered out, which didn't set well with the woman. Considering her tone wasn't very convincing and the hesitation behind her speech only further added to something being suspicious. "I don't believe you," the woman declared sternly while she pointed her hand at Naruto. "So tell me what you're doing to this poor girl before I take action." Naruto scoffed, as now he was starting to grow annoyed. "Listen, who are you?" "Griselda Quarta, and I'm an exorcist of the church," Griselda introduced in a stern voice. "Well, Griselda, I appreciate you looking out for Asia, but I'm growing tired of you butting into matters that don't concern you. So walk away and go pray to your god or something, I really don't care," Naruto declared in an aggressive tone that caused the woman to step forward. Griselda's eyes turned a cold icy blue and the woman shot forward while revealing a hidden sword she had tucked away in her rather baggy nun clothing. "You were warned," Griselda growled while she thrusted her sword into Naruto's gut. Though to the woman's shock her blade shattered into shards and left no mark on the man except for ripping his clothing. "And you were warned as well," Naruto mumbled while he slightly tensed his fist for a punch. A sight which slightly filled Griselda with concern while Asia's eyes grew wide. "Dad, don't hurt her," Asia begged sadly while she wrapped her arms around her father's arms. Knowing just his punch would be enough to seriously harm the woman, Naruto halted his movements and looked down to his daughter. His eyes growing soft while he could see the sadness in them. "I'm sorry, Asia, I took this too far." Asia shook her head and shoved her head into her father's side. "It's okay, just no more," Asia replied, which was a response that made Naruto run his hands through Asia's hair. "She called you dad," Griselda spoke up in a stunned voice while Naruto bit his lower lip. "Well, this is bad," Naruto grumbled in a frustrated voice while suddenly he along with the two women of God disappeared in a blur of speed. Griselda quickly stumbled forward in surprise as she found herself standing atop an empty rooftop overlooking the Vatican City. "What happened?" the woman asked in a stunned voice as she was a little disoriented from the random burst of inhuman speed. "I took us somewhere more private to talk," Naruto revealed, which caused Griselda to look in his direction just as his transformation dropped in a puff of smoke to reveal his true appearance. "Considering you've learned a little more than I'd like you to know." Griselda blushed heavily while she looked at the incredibly handsome and well-built blonde father. "Just what are you? An angel? Devil? Or perhaps something else?" Naruto laughed and glanced down to Asia, who was still holding on to a sleeping Kurama. The latter of whom couldn't care less about the events transpiring. "I'm just a protective parent visiting his daughter," Naruto explained in a friendly tone while he looked back to Griselda. "But you can call me Naruto Uzumaki." Griselda pointed her finger forward. "I know you. You're that pervert that writes all those sinful books." Naruto's mouth dropped at her declaration while Asia laughed and tilted her head. "Yup, that's my daddy." Asia giggled loudly. "Oh yeah?" Naruto began while pointing back at Griselda. "How do you know they are perverted unless you've read them yourself?" Griselda blushed and slapped Naruto's hand. "I am a woman of God. I would never read such disgusting and sinful filth." The exorcist yelled loudly while she stomped her foot onto the ground. However, doing so allowed something to fall out of her baggy clothing and it wasn't another sword. In fact, to Griselda's horror, Asia's shock and Naruto's humor, all three looked down to see one of Naruto's Icha Paradise books laying flat on the ground for all to see. "Sinful filth, huh?" Naruto asked with a slight chuckle while pointing down at the book. "Want me to sign it for you?" "No," Griselda yelled loudly while she quickly scooped the book up and hid it from view. "And I merely have this because I confiscated it from a deviant this morning and haven't disposed of it yet." Naruto grinned at the woman with a foxy grin. "So you don't care to know that Zoro and Robin end up together at the end?" "Spoil, I mean, who are you talking about?" Griselda quickly corrected, which of course made Naruto toss his head back in laughter. Asia watched the exchange from the two with a different mindset. She had joked earlier about her father finding a new wife after the death of her mother Aurora, but that was just a joke. Though for the first time since Aurora's death, Asia was watching her father laugh and get enjoyment from someone that wasn't her. This of course filled the young girl's mind with a new objective and mission, which she dubbed as codename Find a New Mom. "Listen, Griselda." Naruto spoke up while his laughter started to die down. "I'll strike you a deal. You keep that you know me along with my relation to Asia a secret and I won't tell a soul you read my books. Hell, I'll even send you my next book to you early." Griselda jerked her head to the side and held her book out to Naruto. "Sign this and tell me why you're keeping your relation to Asia a secret and you have a deal." Snatching the book and grabbing a pen, Naruto quickly signed the book before handing it back. "Asia wanted to join the church here in the Vatican City and because I'm a very influential person, I made her go by my late wife's maiden name. It's as simple as that." Griselda folded her arms over her chest and looked at Asia. "Well, you can't be talking about your fame as an author being what places Asia in danger. However, after seeing your speed and durability along with whatever you used to change your appearance, I take it you're much more than a simple perverted writer." "Yeah, you could say that." Naruto mumbled in response while he rested a hand on Asia's shoulder. But I need your word that you won't say anything about meeting me or my relation to Asia. My children are the most important thing in my life and I have to ensure they stay safe. Griselda bowed and smiled softly. You have my word as a woman of God that I won't speak a single word of meeting you. Naruto grinned in response as he could feel her emotions and could tell her words were genuine. Thank you Griselda, that means a lot to me. Think nothing of it Naruto, as a fellow parent I can understand your desire to protect Asia. My Zenobia isn't my child by blood, but I took her in as my own and love her more than anything in this world. Griselda explained softly while she smiled at the mention of her young protege. Naruto was interested to learn more about Griselda and her adoptive child Zenobia, as the sister of the church seemed like a wonderful person despite their initial encounter. However, before Naruto could say anything his cell phone started to ring. This of course made the man grab the device and see that Bruno was calling him. Excuse me, work is calling. Naruto began in a serious voice while he started to walk away. Bruno, did you and Giorno complete your mission? Asia watched her father walk to the other side of the roof to have his conversation in private. This of course caused Asia to look at her fellow woman of God with a friendly and innocent smile. Griselda. Asia spoke up kindly, which made Kurama's ears slightly twitch. Showing that the powerful beast was starting to tune in on the conversation. Yes Asia? Griselda asked. How old is Zenobia? The young blonde began, which made Griselda raise an eyebrow in confusion. She is almost 15, why do you ask? Asia frowned softly and slowly began to pet Kurama's back. She's probably older than me then. That's no good. The young nun grumbled in response, which only further added to Griselda's confusion. Why is that an issue? Griselda asked even though she was about to regret doing so. Well. Asia drawled out in a chipper and happy voice while she bounced on her tiptoes. I've been praying real hard for God to give me a little brother or sister since I already have a bunch of older siblings. Though it looks like if I want my prayers to get answered you and daddy will have to take the traditional approach. Griselda was completely red at Asia's words, which forced the nun to hold her hands up in defense. Asia, I'm flattered, but. Do you not think my dad is attractive? The young girl cut in. He is very good looking. Griselda stuttered while her glance moved over to the leader of the passion. Her eyes gazing at the man's features and defined muscles that were unlike any man she had ever seen. But. Well, do you not want to be my new mommy? I know daddy has been so lonely since mom was killed. Asia explained in a slightly sad voice but perked up quickly and began to tap on Griselda's arm. Oh, we could even bond as a family by serving God. At this point Griselda didn't know what to say as the small and innocent girl was relentless in her questions. Meanwhile Kurama couldn't help himself from squinting his eyes open and smirking. She finds something she wants and is sly and cunning about making it happen. I'm so proud of her. Kurama thought to himself. Hey Asia. Naruto called her happily while he tucked away his phone and walked back over to his daughter. I'm sorry to leave so soon, but Bruno called and something needs my attention immediately. That's okay daddy. I know how busy you can be. The younger Uzumaki replied while she smiled at her father and leaned closer to Griselda. I can just spend the rest of the day with Griselda. Me and her have a lot of talking to do. Naruto grinned without a clue in the world at what his daughter was up to. I promise I'll make it up to you sweetie. Naruto began before looking to Griselda with a look that made the woman's face turn red. Oh and Griselda, I really appreciate you keeping to yourself about everything you've learned today, but I have one more request. Could you watch out for Asia for me? She takes after her parents too much and is incredible at finding herself in dangerous situations. Nodding her head, Griselda took a hard swallow before speaking. I'll look after her like she was my own daughter. Naruto smiled while Asia giggled and gave Griselda a sudden one-armed hug. Oh, do you really mean that? The small teenager asked while Naruto didn't understand the true meaning behind the girl's enthusiasm. Well, in that case make sure you give Griselda my number Asia. Naruto ordered in a simple tone, which made his daughter chuckle. Oh, I plan on it daddy. The girl responded in a tone that made Griselda blush while Naruto was still oblivious. Good. And if you need anything Griselda just let me know. Since you're taking care of my precious baby girl I'll take care of you. Naruto declared with his trademark grin, which only made the woman's body grow hot. Showing her embarrassment was hitting peak levels. Thank you. Griselda mumbled while Naruto grinned and saluted the two before vanishing in a burst of speed. Followed by Kurama grinning and licking Asia's cheek before disappearing as well. Alright mommy, let's get to work. Asia declared in a bubbly voice. I'm not you Griselda began, but stopped once Asia hugged her arm and giggled. If you want to win daddy's heart you have to know how to make his favorite food. Asia explained in a carefree and excited voice. So I'm gonna show you how to make the Uzumaki family recipe for ramen. 1 year later, Asia 15. It has been 1 whole year since Naruto had met Griselda, and since that day, Naruto had been busy working on creating his own type of evil pieces. With the goal of creating humans with stronger bodies, lifespans and most importantly the ability to use chakra. To his word, Giorno along with Bruno had obtained a small amount of crystals for Naruto to work with and did so with little trouble. Considering with both boys' abilities in stealth and combat, it wasn't hard for them to steal what Naruto and Kurama wanted. Currently the boss of the Passion and the Nine-Tailed Fox were both in a small makeshift laboratory that Naruto had created to work on crafting his new evil pieces. Work was slow at first as Naruto wasn't a scientist or any sort of super genius, but he was an exceptional learner and had endless shadow clones at his disposal. So he had been making up for his lack of knowledge by using shadow clones to gather knowledge on creating evil pieces and formulating new ideas and prototypes. This of course finally paid off as Naruto and Kurama has managed to create their first batch of pieces. All of which were placed into a small wooden box that rested on a table before Naruto and Kurama. Let's see here. Naruto mumbled softly while he reached out and grabbed onto a 5-pointed wedge with the kanji for king inscribed onto the piece. We managed to create 20 pieces with what Giorno and Bruno had acquired for us. However, how can we test and ensure they work? Well, I would say use one on yourself, but it wouldn't affect your body in the slightest. So it wouldn't be an accurate test to what these new pieces can do. Kurama explained in a simple voice before scoffing. So we should find a guinea pig to test on. Naruto shook his head and held tightly onto the piece in his hand. No, if these hold any negative effects I don't want to hurt anyone. Well, we don't have much of a choice, kid, but what could go wrong? You can feel the power radiating off those pieces just like I can. In theory they should work without any issue. So I say we give them out and see the fruit of our labor. Naruto sighed and placed the piece he was holding back into the box. Then with a slightly downward look he glanced at Kurama. Fine, we will use some of the pieces on Giorno and the others. Though I'd have to call all of them back first. Kurama cracked a smile. I had already made arrangements for them to receive the pieces a few days ago, as I foresaw us finally finishing the pieces sometime by today. Naruto glared at the chakra beast. So you've been planning this without consulting me? Kurama nodded and shrugged his shoulders. Yes, and I've informed your 7 capos about what we've been working on. They are all ready to accept our pieces, which we haven't properly named yet. I feel we shouldn't copy those devils by calling them evil pieces. Naruto nodded and grabbed 7 pieces before turning towards the exit of his lab. We will call them sage pieces. The shinobi from another dimension declared while he gripped tightly on the 7 shogi pieces in his hand. And in the future never make plans without speaking with me, Kurama. Kurama smirked and followed Naruto out of his lab and towards his office, which was on the top floor of his villa house. Then as the duo emerged into the office they found 7 familiar and loyal individuals waiting for them. Boss father. The 7 greeted while Naruto waved the boys off and walked over to his desk. So I don't have to waste any time explaining why you're here. Naruto began with a slight sigh while he leaned against his desk. So why don't we get down to business? Without wasting any time Naruto tossed the 7 sags pieces to each of his capos. All of whom caught their respective pieces and inspected the shogi pieces with mild interest. So these will make us like you, boss? Abakio asked skeptically while he held onto a piece with the kanji for gold general. Naruto folded his arms and shrugged his shoulders. Yes and no. The blonde replied in a simple tone, which confused his subordinates. In theory your bodies will become extremely durable and your lifespans will increase dramatically. You shall also develop chakra networks much like my own. However, any new power you receive would not be on the same level as my own. So yes, you will be like me, but none of you will come close to obtaining my level of power. Even Giorno, despite being my own child, didn't inherit nearly enough of my own genetics to reach my level of power. Despite that you all will grow exceptionally in strength. Well, how do they work? Narancia asked in confusion while the boy held the piece with the kanji for silver general above his head against the light. Naruto tapped onto his chest. Press them into your chest and it will be absorbed into your body. Giorno held onto the piece that had the kanji for rook and shrugged his shoulder before pressing the sage piece into his body. An action that was quickly followed by the other 6 members of Naruto's top subordinates. Naruto watched with interest as each boy placed their respective pieces into their bodies. Then almost instantly one by one each boy clutched their chests while the leader of the passion could feel chakra following inside and around the boys. This caused Naruto to close his eyes before opening them to reveal his Sharingan and Rinnegan. Allowing Naruto to watch in amazement as each boy slowly grew chakra networks in their bodies while Giorno's chakra reserves seemed to grow even larger than before. It's working. Naruto gasped in shock while he watched the transformation happen before his very eyes. And just like that, chakra and shinobi have been reborn into this world. Naruto heard Kurama's words and couldn't help himself from smiling as they had actually done it. They had found a way to transfer his genetics and create a new variation of humans, ones that could finally stand against all the other factions with ease. Well, looks like we will have some training to do. Naruto chuckled as he watched all 7 of his top men collapse forward and pass out from the transformation. Despite this, Naruto could see with his eyes that all 7 were more than okay. But we do. Kurama began with a large toothy grin while he looked over each boy. And when we're our finished humans will finally be a faction with real power behind it. Well, let's get to work then. Naruto purposed while he along with Kurama walked forward to pick the unconscious capos off the ground. 1 year later, Asia 16. It has been another year since Naruto had taken his sage pieces and created a new generation of humans to serve him in the passion. In that time frame, Naruto had continued to expand his reach over the world while also gathering information and training his new and improved shinobi. His efforts were quite fruitful and after this past year had amassed enough influence, information and manpower to begin making serious moves in the supernatural communities. Currently Naruto was standing before a large map of the world while red circles and small notes filled out different locations and points of interest on the map. Then standing before the boss of the passion was his top capos, all of whom were trying to help offer advice for their first move and the moves to follow after. So we have information on almost every group in this dimension, but now we need to decide how we approach these groups. Naruto began in a strong and commanding voice while he folded his arms and looked to his subordinates. Me and Kurama have talked extensively about how we should handle things for months now. First we talked about assigning each of you as ambassadors to meet with various groups, but ultimately we decided that leaves too much room for error. So instead we shall pick and choose who we reach out to and I will personally establish relationships with those groups. Does anyone have any issues with that? Not a single soul spoke up or questioned Naruto as they trusted their leader and knew he would be better suited for establishing relations anyway. Considering Naruto was a natural-born leader and was very proficient at making friends with his words alone. Well, that's good. Naruto spoke up with a slight smirk. But now does anyone have any recommendations for where we should begin? If I may, boss. Risato began as he placed his hand over his chest and stepped forward. I have investigated several groups and factions in these last few years. In my opinion, a good starting place would be the Yokai faction led by a woman named Yasaka. She is supposedly a powerful 9-tailed fox yokai whose strength rivals that of an ultimate class devil. Naruto rubbed his chin and hummed to himself at his assassin's suggestion. I'm starting off with a faction that isn't one of the major biblical 3. I like that idea and I do have a certain connection with 9-tailed foxes as well. Tell me, where is this Yasaka on our map again? The city in Japan called Kyoto. Risato explained in a matter-of-fact tone, which caused Naruto to nod his head and look at the map. Okay, so the Yokai could be a good start, but I would like to hear from the rest of you. Please share your thoughts with me. Naruto admitted as he glanced over his shoulder and noticed Giorno take a bow. Father, I suggest making contact with the devil faction that myself and Bruno have been observing. They don't seem like an inherent threat and should be relatively easy to contact. In my opinion, they would make a good ally. Giorno began in a simple voice, while Bruno took a step forward before bowing. There are also rumors of devils from 2 of the noble households living in the human world. They are actually taking up territory in a town in Japan called Kuo Town. Bruno declared, which caused both Mista and Fugo to raise their brows. Wait, did you say Kuo? The gunslinger asked, which made Bruno nod. That's a wild coincidence since me and Fugo have been hearing rumors recently about fallen angels planning on making moves into Kuo Town. So that's 3 factions within Japan, all of which have separate motives. Risato spoke up in an emotionless tone. Abakio sighed and rubbed the back of his head. I have no confirmation on angels in Japan, but I've heard rumors of their faction having interest in the area. So we definitely need to make Japan our first target. Narancia began while holding his hands out wide. You're right, Naranica. Japan for some reason has become a focal point for a majority of the factions for some reason. This is unfortunate since the passion's influence isn't very strong in Japan. Naruto began in a low voice as he walked over to his desk and stopped for a moment. However, we can fix that by moving our operations to the region and continuing our expansion. This of course will be mainly handled by you 7, as I will be busy making contact with the factions in the area. Where are we going to start, boss? Fugo asked, which was the question everyone present had. I feel Kuo is the best course of action at the moment. If 2 or potentially all of the major biblical factions have roots in that area, then it's obviously important. Though at the same time the town could become ground zero for a major conflict, which is why our presence is needed immediately. After relations have been established, then we can focus on branching out more, but for now I feel moving our organization to Kuo is the smartest move. Naruto explained in an honest tone, which no one had any issues with. If that's your order, father, I'll get preparations started on moving to Kuo Town. Giorno began, which made Naruto smile wide. Thank you, and I mean that to all of you. Naruto declared in a warm and happy tone while he maneuvered his way to the seat at his desk. I couldn't have done half the things I've done without you seven by my side. You're not just integral at helping create a better world, but you're also the defenders of the entire human race. I'm grateful and proud of you all. Naruto's 7 top subordinates all smirked at his praise but couldn't help themselves from suddenly chuckling. Considering their powerful and imitating leader suddenly leaped for joy like a small child as his phone began to ring. It's Asia. Naruto cheered in an excited voice while he quickly answered the phone and placed it onto speaker. Hello my little angel, I have you on speakerphone with Yorno and everyone else. Say hi to my beautiful baby girl everyone. Yorno laughed softly at his father's childish habits involving his baby sister. Hey Asia, I haven't talked to you in a while. I hope you're doing okay. Bruno smiled and folded his arms. Asia, it's Bruno, I miss you so much. I promise to come visit you soon. The Bakio nodded and kept his cool demeanor. I'll come too and bring you some of your favorite gelato from back home. No boys have tried to make any moves on you? Mr. asked as he summoned his gun and did a quick spin with the weapon. If so, I'd be okay with shooting them. Asia, it's Naranika. The young delinquent yelled happily as he was beaming with excitement. I got some cool new CDs that I totally have to show you. She doesn't like your music, idiot. Fugo insulted in an annoyed voice. She would much rather spend the day with her precious big brother Fugo, isn't that right Asia? Risato laughed and shook his head. You guys are too much. The assassin began in a calm and collected voice. Give the poor girl a moment to speak. Tell us how you are Asia. The line was quiet for a moment and everyone waited in anticipation for the girl to speak. However, after a brief moment of silence the group of gangsters heard a sound that completely changed the atmosphere in the room as the sound of Asia crying reached their ears. Asia, what's wrong? Naruto spoke up without hesitation as it was rare for his daughter to show such emotions. I. The young blonde began, but her voice was hardly understandable due to her sobbing. Asia, calm down. Naruto instructed calmly while everyone in the group slowly inched closer to the phone. Is Griselda there to talk for you? No, she was sent away to conduct her duties months ago. Asia spoke up as this time the group could understand what the young teenager was saying. What happened Asia? You're not in trouble are you? Giorno asked while he was hovering over top of the phone. Asia couldn't hold it back any longer as with a tightening of her throat and a short intake of breaths she began to sob uncontrollably. The church. Asia gasped in a loud cluster of gut-wrenching sobs that tore through the chest of everyone listening. Excommunicated me. The temperature in the room dropped dramatically while 8 pairs of blacked-out eyes glared at the phone with an immeasurable amount of killing intent. Asia. Naruto began in a low and infuriated voice while his knuckles were pressed so hard onto his desk the wood began to crack. Stay right where you are, I'm coming to get you. Oh okay. The young Uzumaki croaked out in response while Naruto hung the phone up. The Bakio, I want you Fugo, Narancia and Mr. to keep your focus on making preparations on getting ourselves relocated to Japan. Bruno and Giorno, I want you two at Asia's side and stay there until I'm finished with figuring out why the hell the church decided to excommunicate my daughter. Naruto ordered in a tone that left no room for discussion as he pointed to his assassin. And Risato, assemble your squad because if one person harmed my baby girl heads are going to roll. All 7 members of Naruto's top circle took a bow of respect. Understood boss. But then let's get a move on it. Naruto instructed as he began to make his way out of his office and towards his destination of the Vatican City. Words couldn't describe the hurt, pain and betrayal that Asia was feeling at the moment. Currently the former member of the church was alone in her small apartment and curled into a tight ball on the ground. Her mother's Bible was clenched tightly into her chest while the only sound within the room was her raspy whimpers. Showing that she had been crying to the point of nearly losing her voice. I failed God. Asia wailed in sadness as she was completely heartbroken. Considering her dream of serving God and the last few years of her life had been destroyed because she wanted to help someone in need. That someone being a real devil above all things. However, as Asia was consumed in her depression. The door to her apartment started to magically unzip like a jacket. Revealing her older brother Giorno and their friend Bruno. Both of whom were instantly disheartened to see the bright and kind girl in such a defeated state. Asia. Giorno spoke softly as he watched the girl twitch and look up to him. It's going to be okay. Stumbling to her feet and holding her hands out wide, Asia quickly ran straight into her older brother and hugged the boy. I just wanted to help. The girl began in a low and exhausted voice. Letting Giorno see the effect Asia's excommunication had on her. I didn't think the church would get mad. Asia, I'm sure whatever you've done was completely justified. Giorno reassured softly while he began to stroke his hands through Asia's long blonde hair. There is no need to cry anymore, your family is here to take you home. Where is dad? Asia asked. Giorno frowned slightly and looked over to Bruno who was watching over the two protectively. Father wanted to take care of something. Giorno answered simply. He will be here shortly to come see you. That's good. Asia replied while she backed away and rubbed her arms. I would like to return home. I feel so much hate, lust, evil and other negative feelings from this place since my excommunication. I used to be surrounded by so much joy and happiness, but now I feel none of that. Now it's like this overwhelming darkness is circling me like some sort of prey. What do you mean you feel things? Giorno asked suddenly, as he himself couldn't feel anything. This of course made the older siblings' mind race at the possibility that Asia may have inherited their father's ability to sense emotions. Something that Giorno never inherited from his father even with his newly improved body. I just feel them. What can you not feel them? The feelings are all around us. Asia pointed out while she slightly shuddered. It's so vulgar and evil. I don't understand how you couldn't notice it. Moving down onto one knee, Giorno looked at his younger sister with a small proud smirk. Asia, how long have you been able to feel things? Have you told father about these feelings? Ever since I was little, but what's the big deal, Giorno? Isn't it normal for people to have these feelings? Asia asked innocently, which only made the elder sibling shake his head. Did you never listen to father's stories of when he fought in the war? Giorno asked, which made Asia shake her head from side to side. No, I didn't like listening to dad's war stories. I don't like violence. Asia explained in a sweet voice that made both Giorno and Bruno smile. So she wouldn't know. Bruno laughed in a low voice, as even in this awful situation, Asia's innocence was enough to bring some joy into the situation. Don't know what? Asia asked softly, as she was beyond confused. Asia, you inherited something very special from father. It's an ability that so far has been exclusive to a very few amount of people. Giorno explained softly, which made the girl's eyes widen in surprise. You like father have the ability to sense emotions. This is something that I have never had the ability to do, as even through all my training and enhancements, I've never came close to reaching the surface of father's power and abilities. You on the other hand. Giorno couldn't help himself from smiling wide and ruffling Asia's messy hair. Well, it seems you're closer to father than I could ever hope to reach. Why you really mean that? Asia asked in a surprised voice, well overjoyed to be compared closely to the man she idolized. Yes, I do mean that, Asia. Giorno replied before hugging his little sister. You're an incredible young woman. Bruno smiled at the small brother and sister moment, but at the same time, he thought of the question that was lingering in Giorno's mind. That of course being just how similar was Asia to her father. The girl never trained and was a pacifist by nature, but could in theory hold power that could come close if not even rival that of her father's. After all, she was a daddy's girl through and through. With Naruto walking down the halls of the Vatican, Naruto was accompanied by only Risato. Considering the rest of Naruto's squad of assassins were ordered to take up post around the Vatican and act on instructions in case the situation got out of hand. However, Naruto didn't really worry about the situation spiraling out of his control. Considering for the moment his target was the Pope, a human who possessed little to no real power outside of his influence in the church. Though it didn't take long for Naruto and Risato to be noticed by members of the church. Considering they had just strolled their way in unannounced, which was why church members were rushing their location from a distance. Halt, intruder. State your business. A member of the church spoke up as he along with a group of armed guards blocked Naruto's path. Shall I take care of them, boss? Risato asked with a gleam in his eye, which made the individuals tense up. No, Risato, there is no need. Naruto mumbled in an off-handed tone as his Rinnegan flared to life and an invisible force knocked all the men to the side. Don't waste your energy on the mindless grunts. Risato nodded and continued to follow Naruto past the easily dispatched church members. Leading the two towards the end of the hall, where a set of giant golden doors was laid out before them. A sight that made the two stop in their tracks while the assassin merely scoffed. Giant ornate doors decorated in gold. Risato began in a low and bored tone. The church really is a bunch of pretentious assholes. Nodding in response, Naruto held his right hand outward. Yes, the gold is a little over the top. The leader of the passion replied as a swirl of blue chakra began to violently gather in his palm. Honestly, it's an eyesore to look at. Rasengan. Naruto called out in fury as instead of pushing the signature ball of chakra into the doors, Naruto threw his attack straight into the giant doors. Blasting both off their hinges and sending them sliding into the main corridor where the Pope resided. What is the meaning of this? The Pope yelled loudly while he glanced towards Naruto from the large golden throne he was seated upon. A golden throne as well. Naruto mumbled in an uninterested voice. Like I said, boss, pretentious assholes. Risato added in with a slight chuckle. Though it looks like the church is rather arrogant. No angels as far as the eye can see. Just a bunch of weak followers that can easily be killed. Quickly and without warning, Naruto along with Risato were surrounded by an overwhelming number of the Pope's personal guard. All of whom were pointing serval-light-based weapons at Naruto and his subordinate. I ask you why you're here. The Pope began while he stood to his feet. Are you assassins from the devil or fallen angel factions here to cause conflict? Naruto laughed and shook his head while he took a few steps forward, making all the guards slightly twitch in anticipation. Unfortunately for you I am not, but allow me to introduce myself. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, the strongest human alive and the leader of the passion. Naruto began in a strong and commanding voice while his Sharingan and Rinnegan burst to life for all to see. And you're sitting in my chair. The Pope actually began to laugh in response to Naruto's claim and looked condescendingly down upon the blonde. Do you honestly expect me to believe that the Pope began, but was silenced the moment his body was teleported forward? A rapid change in movement, which made the figurehead of the church stumbled forward and fall flat on his face. Meanwhile his guards all looked on in disbelief as they were surrounding the man they were trying to protect instead of the intruders. You know Risotto. The voice of Naruto began in an uncaring tone, which made the Pope's eyes grow wide. Then with fear laced in his body the man looked over his shoulder. Finding Naruto seated on his throne with an amused expression and his chin rested against his hand while his line of sight was glanced to his right side. Where Risotto was standing patiently and looking directly back to the Pope. What is it, boss? The assassin asked while his lips curled into a smirk. It might make me a pretentious asshole myself, but fuck all, my ass has never been this comfortable. Naruto revealed in a pleased voice while he wiggled his backside further into the throne. I think when we are done here I'm taking this with me. Risotto took a slight bow. I'll make preparations to have it taken for you. Would you like it taken to your house in Naples or taken with you to Japan? Definitely Japan. Naruto replied blissfully. But enough about my new chair. It's time we get down to business. You approach me. The Pope shuddered in fear as he watched Naruto motion with his finger to come closer. What do you want? The Pope stumbled through his words, which made Naruto click his teeth in anger. So extending his hand outward, Naruto simply uttered. Bansham Tenon and made the Pope's body propel forward and come to a sliding stop before Naruto's feet. I said approach me, mongrel, not question me. Naruto snarled with a wave of superiority and power behind his voice. I am sorry. The Pope groveled in fear as he pressed his forehead into the marble flooring of the Vatican. I don't need your apology. Naruto replied in a simple tone while he used his foot to lift the man's chin up, forcing the Pope to make eye contact with him. I'm here to ask one simple question. Why was my precious daughter Asia Argento excommunicated from your stupid church? Also think long and hard before you answer my question. Because if I don't like your answer, well you could probably figure out why I brought my head assassin with me. You must. Gua the Pope shuddered before he began to violently throw up his own blood, which held an assortment of tiny razor blades. A result of Risotto's sacred gear in action. The boss said answer his question. Not babble like a fool and waste time he could be spending with his daughter. Risotto yelled loudly as he glared down at the man with a spiteful look. The Pope nodded and wiped the blood from his mouth. I'm sorry Mr. Uzumaki, Asia was excommunicated because she used her healing abilities on an injured devil. Please show mercy on me however, as the choice wasn't mine to make. I'm just a simple servant and pawn to a much higher power. Well in that case. Naruto began softly while his eyes glared down at the man. Bring your fucking boss to me. Cause now I'm pissed. I mean you assholes really destroyed my precious Asia's dreams because she helped someone. Devil or not, that is no excuse for your unforgivable sin. The Pope quickly nodded and stood to his feet. I'll call for my boss immediately. The man declared in a fearful tone while his hands were quickly clasped together in prayer. Naruto watched the Pope with a slight amount of interest, wondering to himself just what the man was trying to accomplish. However, as a blinding white light obstructed Naruto's view. 3 golden sigils appeared behind the Pope and before Naruto knew it, he was face to face with 3 heavenly entities. The first was a male who appeared young in age, but Naruto knew for this dimension didn't mean much. The man had golden blonde hair and green eyes, while his most striking feature was the 12 golden wings growing from his back. The individual was wearing a red robe with a gold cross on the front of his white alb, which had golden shoulder plates with a white sash, and to finish things off, he had a single halo floating above his head. Next Naruto noticed an extremely beautiful woman with curly blonde hair and a voluptuous figure, which was a beauty beyond basic words. However, Naruto wasn't one to allow a pretty face to distract his anger. Instead he simply looked at the woman's 12 golden wings and floating halo, leading Naruto to believe that he was before the presence of at least 2 angels. However, what truly sent Naruto for a loop was the third individual, who was none other than Griselda Quarta. Though the woman appeared vastly different from the previous encounter as she now sported 6 white wings and a single halo above her head. Unfortunately before Naruto could make a comment on the woman's physical changes, the Pope held his hands out wide and began to laugh. Haha. Now you're screwed you ignorant sinners. The Pope yelled with a sense of victory in his voice, while Risotto glared at the man and Naruto kept a neutral expression. You now stand before the presence of 2 of the 4 great seraphs. quake in fear before the Archangel Michael and Gabriel. Naruto rolled his eyes at the man's over-the-top introduction, as he really couldn't care less. Instead he merely looked to Griselda with a blank face. "It's been a while, Griselda." Naruto began softly, which made the Pope's mouth drop and the two powerful angels arch their eyebrows. Gabriel tilted her head with a friendly and curious smile. "Griselda, you're familiar with this human?" "Yes, but it has almost been a year and a half since the last time he and I saw one another in person," Griselda admitted calmly, while at the same time folding her arms under her large bust. "But you're not one to visit the church often, and certainly not in this type of spectacle. So tell me what is going on, Naruto." "I'm here because of Asia," Naruto replied in a bitter voice, which made Michael lower his head in shame. "What about Asia?" Griselda asked quickly and without hesitation. "Wait, you don't know?" Naruto replied in disbelief, while the woman shook her head. "Well, apparently one of these bastards made the decision to excommunicate her from the church just because she used her healing on an injured devil." "What?" Griselda shouted in a fit of rage that surprised everyone including Naruto. "I leave her for a few months and you decide to toss her out of the church for helping someone? How stupid can you be? Lord Michael, was this your doing?" Michael sighed and simply nodded. "Yes, it was a choice I made and regret. As you know, with our current balance in heaven due to what happened to God, I held the belief that if our religion weakened, it would cause a calamity that could result in an end to heaven as we know it. So I had no choice but to kick out those that might seem like a threat to the system like Asia." "That's all you're gonna say?" Naruto roared at the top of his lungs while he glared a hole right through the angel's head. "That you destroyed my daughter's dreams because it was inconvenient for your little system you have going on?" "Yes," Michael answered simply, which made Naruto tighten his fists together. "If it makes you feel any better, it's nothing personal against young Asia. I would have made the same decision with any member of the church." Griselda looked at the Archangel with a slight frown. "Even if those people were mere even Zenobia. Of course, the survival of heaven and the angel faction takes priority above everything else." Michael answered without even blinking, which caused Griselda to lower her head. Considering the woman had devoted her entire life to the church and sacrificed so much for the name of God. However, to hear just how expendable she was in the eyes of her superiors truly upset her, leaving Griselda with mixed feelings about her servitude within the church. Naruto saw this action and couldn't hold back his festering anger any longer. "You trash." The boss of the passion growled in a low and rage-filled tone. "You would turn your back on your comrade so easily. You insult me, human, but yet are you any better than I? Could you really stand there and say you wouldn't make the same choices as myself to protect what is important?" Michael asked in response, which made Risotto of all people jump forward. "Don't you dare compare the boss to yourself." The assassin yelled loudly as he pointed a finger at the angel. "Unlike you, he is a true leader that not only inspires his followers but treats us like family. We do not follow the boss for his power, but we follow him for his compassion and ideals. You ask if he would make the same decision as yourself. Well, I know the boss would sooner die than betray his own. He is the man who will change this world and the man I dedicated my life to serve under." Gabriel smiled at the assassin's words and looked at Naruto with interest. "Your subordinate speaks very highly of you, which means you're either a master manipulator or an exceptional person. Considering you're familiar with Griselda and the father of young Asia, I'm inclined to believe the latter. So tell me, human, just who are you?" Standing to his feet, Naruto stood before the angels with a sense of power and authority. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, leader of the passion and the strongest man alive. As such, I represent all of humanity and speak for humans everywhere." "Oh really?" Gabriel began with a slight chuckle in her voice. "I didn't know the humans had a leader. Huh, I'm learning all sorts of things when I'm not stuck in heaven." Michael kept a stern face. "Actually, the humans don't have a single unified leader. In fact, I've never heard of this man before. Tell me, human, does your kind know you speak for them? Or are you just another power-seeking human spouting nonsense? You speak down to me like you're some sort of higher power, but believe me, mongrels." Naruto began firmly as his Sharingan and Rinnegan replaced his blue eyes. Followed by Naruto summoning his full power, which coated his body in a cloak of golden sage chakra. Then finally Naruto unleashed a wave of his restrained power and began to shake the entire Vatican city on its foundation. A spectacle that placed both Gabriel and Michael on alert as they realized Naruto was much more than a simple human. "You're nothing but insects when compared to me." But that being said, Naruto halted his little display and reverted back to his normal state, which caused everyone present to finally take a breath and recompose themselves. Griselda was shocked to her core as she knew Naruto was above average. However, the power she just felt was more than anything she had ever seen or felt. Michael and Gabriel on the other hand were sweating as they had felt sheer power like that once before from God himself. Meaning that this human before them was some sort of anomaly that had power that far exceeded their own. "However, I must say that there is something that I seek." Naruto began in an offhanded tone, making both Michael and Gabriel tense up. I seek the creation of a better world. One absent of hate, violence and war. So here is your one and only warning, mongrels, I will make my goal a reality. I will protect this world, and if you try to ruin the peace I'm working towards, I will stop you dead in your tracks. Well, if that is your goal, perhaps we can work together. Michael offered in a friendly tone. No. Naruto replied without even taking a moment to think. I will never ally myself with someone who treats their comrades like tools that can be thrown away. Don't get me wrong, I will not go against you and heaven unless provoked, but after meeting you, I have no desire to work with you. So leave my church. Your church? Gabriel asked softly. Naruto nodded and reclaimed his seat. Heaven is your domain, but earth belongs to the humans. As such, this church along with everything else is under my control and protection. So leave, unless you wish to challenge me for this land. Michael held his hands up and took a slight bow. You seem like an admirable human with good intentions, and I'm sorry we have gotten off on the wrong foot. However, I cannot simply give away my control of the church to you. Michael is right. The church is too important for us to just hand over. Gabriel protested with a slight pout. We can't give in to your demands. You will give in. Naruto replied in an uncaring voice. I won't go off and reconstruct your religion or anything, but I'm taking away your grip on humanity. In fact, I don't think you comprehend just how far my power in this world reaches. I have politicians, companies, celebrities and many more sources of influence under my control all over the world. In reality, the church means nothing to me and my end goal, but it means everything to you. So I'm taking that away from you and there isn't anything you can do. You really want to make an enemy out of heaven? Gabriel shouted loudly, as she didn't like the idea of losing the church. However, to her surprise, Michael held his hand out and sighed softly. Fine, I shall submit to your demands then, but I do so with the hope of a better future. Though my peaceful compliance does come with a simple request. What? Michael, how could you? Gabriel yelled in disbelief. You felt his power, Gabriel, and if his influence reaches as far as he claims. Well, starting a conflict with him would only hurt our faction in the long run. Like I said earlier, I will do anything to ensure the survival and prosperity of the Angel faction. Michael explained in an exhausted voice. All we can hope for now is a deal to work towards mending the gap we have created and work towards a better future. Naruto laughed and shook his head. You really don't understand the concept of not up for debate, do you? I don't have to make any deal with you at all. The church is mine and you can't do anything about it, mongrel. I do, but my request is simple. Michael admitted as he held his hand out to Griselda. I'll entrust the church in your care only if you keep Griselda by your side as an embassy between your faction and my own. You seem to have a connection with her and she is a highly trusted member of the church. I hope in time we can make amends and strive towards that better future, and Griselda could help towards making progress happen. Hey, Griselda is my queen. Gabriel whined in an annoyed voice. You can't go off making choices for her like that. It's fine, Lady Gabriel. Griselda spoke up while she slowly approached Naruto. I will be more than happy to work with Naruto and his faction. I assume that I shall be staying with him and working under his orders. Michael nodded. Yes, you shall be an important bridge in fixing the relations between Heaven and Naruto. My decisions have caused an obvious issue, but I feel time and cooperation can solve those problems. Naruto sighed, as he wasn't wanting to work with the Angel faction at all after everything that had happened. However, he liked Griselda, and he would at least make an exception for her. Alright, the terms are acceptable if Griselda is okay with them. Naruto began, while he watched Griselda take her place by his side. So will you two leave now? Nodding his head, Michael vanished in a golden light, while Gabriel gave a friendly smile and waved before vanishing as well. Leaving the Pope shaking in fear and looking right up to Naruto. What is going to happen to me? The Pope asked with dread in his voice. Standing to his feet, Naruto towered over the man and snatched a large hat off his head. You're stripped as your title of Pope and you're free to leave. The blonde began before tossing the hat to Rosado. I'm naming your subordinate Pesci as the next Pope, Rosado. Tell him the news after you get working on relocating my new chair. Rosado laughed. You're making that idiot the new Pope. I think you're just trying to spite the church at this point. Of course I am. They made my precious daughter cry. Naruto replied back with a small smirk. And now I'm going to go check on Asia. Rosado nodded. I'll handle everything here for you, boss. Don't forget me. Griselda spoke up as she followed after Naruto. I want to see Asia as well. Naruto nodded and the two slowly began to make their way out of the Vatican. Though as they walked, Naruto couldn't help himself from sliding a glance to Griselda. Looking at the beautiful woman's white wings and halo. So have you always been an angel? Naruto asked outright while wasting no time beating around the bush. No, I haven't. I'm the first of a new generation of reincarnated angels created through the Brave Saint system. Griselda explained in a matter-of-fact tone, which caught Naruto's interest. In its core it's just an imitation of the devil's evil pieces, but creates angels instead of devils. Interesting. Naruto mumbled while he rubbed his chin. Seems like the angels had a similar idea to me then. Though if you're just the first then they are obviously behind me on progress. Yes, from my understanding they are months away from selecting and creating more angels. Griselda explained in a casual voice, while her angelic features disappeared to give her a more human appearance. It took months for Heaven's researchers to run experiments and finally transform me into an angel. That is why I have been gone for so many months and didn't know about Asia, but what have you created? Evolved humans like myself, ones with power that is equal if not greater than the other factions. Naruto began as he laughed at Griselda's confused features. Since Naruto nor Asia had really explained to her the scope of Naruto's power. Don't worry about it, Griselda, I'll tell you more about myself and my organization on our plane ride back to Naples. After all, as my new assistant you'll need to know about all these things. Assistant? Griselda replied back with a disgusted voice. I'm a former exorcist of the church and an angel of heaven. I refuse to be subjected to such a demeaning position. Naruto laughed loudly and tossed his head back. Well, if you want to go back with your mongrel buddies I won't stop you. I'll just have to find someone else to stick close to my side and help me. Stick close to you? Griselda stuttered softly, which made Naruto nod with a goofy grin. Yeah. I'm always needing more help planning my days and running my organization. It's hard being the boss of a global organization, so I definitely need someone to stay close to me and help. Naruto explained in an upbeat voice while resting his hand on Griselda's shoulder. Making the angel of heaven shake nervously. In all honesty, I was really happy that mongrel Michael had this idea. Since Asia always calls and tells me how great you are. So I figured you would be the best person for the job. Really? Asia tells you about me? Griselda yelled nervously while she along with Naruto left the Vatican and began to travel the city streets. Almost non-stop. Naruto replied with booming laughter. She always tells me how you spend so much time with her. She constantly boasts how you're so beautiful and kind. Asia even says you're similar to my late wife Aurora. Griselda smiled softly and her nervous emotions were replaced by a warm feeling in her chest. This of course made the woman rest her hands over her heart. Asia is such a sweet girl, I love her so much. I'm honored to be compared to such an important person in her life. Naruto nodded and looked forward with a blank face. Yup, she says you're just as awful in the kitchen as Aurora was. Griselda stumbled forward and almost fell flat on her face, but the woman quickly regained herself and looked up at the chuckling father with a flustered face. I try my best. Griselda declared in embarrassment, which only made Naruto snicker at her expense. The Aurora used to always say that when she tried to cook dinner and failed. Poor woman, if it wasn't for instant ramen and frozen meals she would have staved years before I met her. Naruto shared with fondness as he began to recall memories of his wife. Asia was right. You're a lot like her. Well I like that about you. Naruto cut in with an oblivious and goofy smile, which made the angel's body grow hot and her blush deepened. So you absolutely need to be my assistant. Looking away and wiggling her nervous emotions, Griselda took a hard swallow before nodding. Fine, I'll be your assistant, but I have a question. Why do you keep calling Lord Michael and the angels mongrels? Well, it's simple really. They look down and treat humans like we are nothing besides a pawn in their game. I mean, Asia is a prime example of this. I'm merely showing them the proper amount of respect they deserve by calling them what they truly are. Well, that and I also lost my temper with how they treated my daughter. So that was probably the biggest reason, but I hope I didn't offend you in any way. Considering I actually like you. Griselda shook her head. No, I understand. Naruto grinned from ear to ear and turned towards Asia's apartment, which was one of the nicest places to live for miles. Considering the boss of the passion wasn't going to let his precious daughter live in some rundown building. He along with Aurora had both experienced life as orphans, which was why he wanted to give Asia the best he could. Well, I'm glad you're my new assistant and I'm sure Asia will be overjoyed to know you're coming with us. Naruto began happily while he along with Griselda marched up to Asia's door. Then with smiles on both their faces, Naruto and Griselda peeked inside the apartment to find Asia happily chatting with Bruno and Giorno. Showing that both boys had been working hard to lift her spirits up. Asia. Naruto yelled childishly, which made the girl look to the door with pure joy. Dad, Griselda. Asia called out as she jumped to her feet and ran straight for the adults. Both of whom held their arms wide for the girl to come running too. Bruno and Giorno both observed the interaction with smiles. This was their first time seeing Griselda, but they had heard about her from Asia. However, what truly made the boys smile was how Asia quickly wrapped an arm around the necks of both Naruto and Griselda. Followed by both adults draping themselves over the girl in a protective embrace. A sight that if they didn't know better could have been mistaken for a young girl reuniting with her father and mother. How are you, my little princess? Naruto whispered softly into Asia's ear while he began to brush her hair. Better now. Asia answered honestly, making both adults smile. I'm so happy to see you both. Oh, and Griselda, since you're back, does that mean Zenobia is here as well? Griselda giggled and shook her head and backed away from Asia. No, I haven't seen Zenobia for some time, but I believe she is off doing work for the church somewhere else. Oh, that's too bad. Asia grumbled in sadness while she dropped her head. You probably heard I was excommunicated. So I won't get to see you or Zenobia that much anymore. Yes, I've learned of your fate and I don't know about Zenobia, but you'll be seeing much more of me. Griselda chirped happily, which filled Asia with a mixture of joy and confusion. Oh really? Asia asked, while hoping this wasn't a prank from her father. Naruto nodded and held his hands out to Griselda. Yes Asia, you're looking at my new assistant of the passion. The angel of heaven, Griselda Quarta. Assistant? Angel? Asia gasped in surprise as she didn't see the revelation coming. In fact, both Yorno and Bruno were shocked as well when they watched Griselda sprout angel wings and a halo. That's right Asia, I'm an angel now and I'll be working with your father also. So we will be seeing much more of each other. Griselda explained while she allowed her angelic features to drop. That's wonderful. You're even more beautiful than before Griselda. Asia yelled happily while she looked to her father. Oh and daddy, I have something to tell you, but first, where is Kurama? He's back at Naples preparing something for us. He wanted to come, but I convinced him to stay home for me. Naruto explained, which made Asia nod. That's too bad, I'll just have to tell him later. Asia grumbled sadly. Tell him what? Naruto asked and noticed Giorno walk over and rest his hand on Asia's shoulder. That Asia has inherited your ability to sense emotions. Giorno revealed with a proud smirk. Which shows just how similar you two are. Naruto was at a loss for words, as he would have never expected his daughter to inherit such a trait from him. Asia, is this true? How did this happen? Asia giggled and tilted her head. I've always been able to do it daddy. I just didn't know it was something special until Giorno told me it was. Naruto shook his head and laughed. Only you would do something like that Asia. Asia nodded and grinned. What can I say? I look like my mom, but I'm too much like my daddy. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Naruto grumbled in response, making everyone present laugh at the blonde's reaction. It means you're a wonderful person daddy and I love you more than anything. Asia declared happily as she leaned forward and hugged her father. Though if it's okay with you I'm ready to leave. Bruno packed my things and I'm really wanting to leave this place. I feel too many negative emotions from the city bearing down onto me. Naruto lifted his brow as he wasn't trying to sense anything. However, Naruto noticed Asia's smile drop and her body shudder. She obviously inherited his ability to sense emotions, but her reaction wasn't normal by his experience. So reaching out for himself, Naruto felt something that instantly made his anger rise. Considering a strong wave of lust, anger and other evil emotions were practically being directed straight at Asia. This caused Naruto to follow these feelings and take notice to a single individual watching them from a building rooftop located behind Naruto's back. Asia, what you're feeling isn't the city, but a single person who is watching us. Naruto explained softly while he lightly patted the head of the worried girl before standing to his feet. The person is unaware that I've noticed them, but I'm going to go introduce myself. Griselda stood to her feet and folded her arms. She could tell Asia was upset and that was enough for her to take action. I'll join you. The angel declared as her wings and halo burst to life for all to see. Naruto nodded and before anyone could say anything the two disappeared in a quick display of speed. Followed by Naruto and Griselda appearing before a young boy whose face was absolutely shocked by the sudden appearance of the duo. The unknown boy was gentle looking and decently handsome with turquoise hair, while his eyes were squinted. He appeared to be a high school teenager, but dressed like royalty. However, just feeling his emotions, Naruto knew immediately that he didn't like this boy at all. Just who are you? Naruto asked, his tone dry and emotionless. And why are you stalking my daughter? You're related to Asia. The boy asked in a friendly tone. Griselda stepped forward and narrowed her gaze. You were asked a question, devil. The woman began, which made the boy slightly twitch. That's right, I can tell exactly what you are. Naruto sized the boy up and down, noticing he kept a friendly smile. However, Naruto knew this was a facade that this boy was keeping up. However, what the boy didn't know was that Naruto could observe this easily. You caught me. I'm surprised to learn that Asia has parents who are alive. I believed her to be an orphan of the church, but looks like her mother is an angel, which explains why she is so amazing. The boy began, while neither Naruto or Griselda corrected the boy on his assumption of Griselda being Asia's mother. My name is Diodora Astareth, but I'm also the devil that unfortunately caused Asia's excommunication. You see, I feel awful for this, and that's why I've been watching over her. I want to make sure she is safe. Naruto held 3 fingers up and closed his eyes. 2 truths and 1 lie. The father began while he waved his 3 fingers in the air. Excuse me? Diodora asked in response. You told me 2 truths and 1 lie just now, but I'm curious as to what your goal in doing so was. Naruto explained as he dropped his hands to his side and glared at the devil. Your name is Diodora Astareth and you're the devil that Asia had helped, but you lied about your reason for stalking her. So I'll give you 1 chance to explain yourself to me. And you better hope I like your answer. Or things won't end well for you, mongrel. Griselda looked at the devil, who looked genuinely shocked, but his expression slowly shifted into a vile frown, causing Naruto to feel even more malice and hatred from the devil before him. Even Griselda could notice something wasn't right with the boy as he began to laugh maniacally. Well, aren't you an arrogant fucking human? Diodora yelled with fury laced behind his voice while he held both his hands out wide. You dare speak to me in such a tone? What do you think your angel whore can keep you safe? I'm a high-ranking devil jackass. Diodora declared loudly as he pointed a finger at Naruto and sneered. But I'll admit it, you caught me. I'm not here out of the goodness of my heart. No, I've had my eyes on Asia for a long time. Griselda tightened her fists and glared at the devil. What do you mean had your eyes on her? Diodora licked his lips and brought his hands to his own body and began to feel himself up. She's perfect. The devil began as his voice held sheer ecstasy behind his words. A virgin nun of the church who's so innocent, so naive, so irresistible. You can't blame me for wanting to make her mine. Make her yours. Griselda yelled in fury while Naruto didn't move or speak. Yes, make her mine. I've planned this for months. The devil revealed darkly while he began to laugh hysterically. First I would get a reputation tarnished in the church and leave her life an empty, a miserable wreck. I would then continue to break her to the point of suicide. Then once she had been completely broken I would bring her back as a servant in my peerage and ravish her body for centuries. Even if she wanted it or not. You bastard. Griselda growled in response as she was seconds from killing the devil in front of her. Call me what you wish, I don't care, you'll be dead soon. Diodora declared to the two as a pair of green magical circles appeared around his hands. After all, once Asia learns her parents were killed, that should send her over the edge. Then I'll fuck her brains out and make her my loyal servant. What do you think about that? Griselda was practically bursting with anger, but as she glanced at Naruto that anger was snuffed out completely. Considering for a brief moment as she looked into the cold lifeless eyes of Naruto Uzumaki, she actually felt pity for Diodora. You're the one. Naruto mumbled in a hollow voice as in an instant he was standing inches from Diodora. That made my baby girl cry. Diodora was about to speak, but before even a muscle in his lips could curl, he was quickly blasted with powerful punch from Naruto. A blow to the chest that was so intense it forced the devil onto his knees, while the only sound to escape his lips were hollow gasps of air. Naruto glared downward at the devil, noticing Diodora was taking fast and shallow breaths, showing that the devil most likely had some broken ribs and collapsed lungs. However, Naruto was far from done with the devil and quickly kicked the evil boy onto his back. You really have the balls to stand here and declare you plan to force my Asia to suicide? Then you were stupid enough to say you wanted to force yourself on her. Naruto began in an emotionless voice as he brought his foot high into the air, only to bring his foot down hard onto Diodora's manhood, making the devil shriek in pain and the cement on the building's roof crack from the pressure. Griselda watched Naruto calmly lift his foot up only to strike the boy again and again. A sight that made Griselda look away while the sound of Diodora's screams and Naruto's kicks filled her ears. You're a vile and disgusting creature, but you seem to be acting on your own accord. I'm already on poor terms with the Angel faction and you're not giving me high hopes for the devils. However, unlike Michael, you don't represent the entire faction. Naruto explained to a wide and tear-filled-eyed Diodora while Naruto's Sharingan and Rinnegan spun to life. So after your death I'll still make an attempt to make peace with the devils. Diodora held his hands up and was about to cry out for mercy, but there was only one thing he was getting. That of course being a slow and painful death. Amaterasu. Naruto mumbled in a low voice as black flames engulfed Diodora. This of course slowly burnt the devil to ashes while he screamed in agony the entire time. Naruto watched the devil flail and fight death in desperation, but eventually after a few minutes of torture went limp, showing that Diodora had perished after being burnt alive by Naruto's eternal black flames. A death that in Naruto's book was too good for the devil. That one was for my baby, you damn mongrel. Naruto declared to the charred corpse while at the same time turning to Griselda. And I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't apologize, Naruto-kun, I was about to kill him for the things he said about Asia. However, it was your right as her parent to take the devil out. Griselda replied as she glanced down to Asia's apartment building. But I think it's time we leave this place. Naruto nodded. I couldn't agree more. Naples, a few hours later, Asia slowly maneuvered her way through her childhood home and in the direction of Naruto's office. It had been a few hours since Asia had finally returned home from the Vatican, but on the plane ride home she had learned a few things. First, Naruto had shared with Griselda his origin and dream, which caused Naruto to tell Griselda and Asia that they were moving to Japan to further Naruto's pursuit for world peace. Asia thought her father's plan and goal was admirable, but leaving so soon after just returning home was bittersweet. Considering after spending years from home she returned just to leave once more. However, as Asia traversed the house she eventually reached her father's office and walked inside, allowing the girl to see dozens of boxes packed and ready for transport. "I can't believe we are really moving to Japan," Asia mumbled softly as she approached her father's desk, where a picture of her family was framed on display. Though Asia's attention was quickly moved away from the picture and to an open box on Naruto's desk. Said box contained an assortment of shogi pieces, but Asia noticed that some were clearly missing. "These must be the sage pieces Dad and Kurama made," Asia began as she reached out and picked a piece from the box. Then by holding the piece up she smiled. "King huh?" The blonde mumbled as she read the kanji on the piece but quickly placed it back into the box. "Asia, are you up here?" The voice of Naruto called out. "Yes, Daddy." The young blonde called back while turning to the door of the office. Noticing the smirking face of her father. "Getting one last look of the place before we leave tomorrow?" Naruto asked before he entered the room slowly. "Yeah, just wanted to soak up as much as I can," Asia admitted softly while her eyes scanned the room. "I've missed this place." "I know, but this move won't be permanent. This house will always be here for us to return to," Naruto pointed out in a giddy tone while he leaned against his desk beside Asia. "But I've been thinking a lot about you, Asia." Looking up to her father, Asia lifted her brow. "What have you been thinking about?" "It's about your dream," Naruto began in a low voice as he sighed and rubbed the back of his head. "I technically own the church now and could bring you back into the church. Sure, no one involved with the angel faction will be present as I'm moving the passion into the church and kicking everyone else out. However, I won't do that as I want you by my side for a while. So what I'm saying is, will you be unhappy since your dream has been crushed?" Asia smiled and hugged her father. "I'll be fine, I'm sure I'll find a new passion to strive for." Naruto patted Asia and smiled. "And I'll help you no matter what you decide on." "Thank you, but until I find what I want to do, I'm going to help you," Asia declared loudly, which made Naruto grin. "Giorno said the devils you're looking to contact are in high school, and Griselda told me the mess you made with the angels. So I think I should help you." "Asia, you don't need to get involved, I can. "No Daddy, I'll help. After all, a girl moving to high school and befriending some devils sends a better message than a perverted old man chasing after them," Asia pointed out, which made Naruto chuckle in response. "We don't want another repeat of what happened with the angels." Naruto sighed. "You have a point, but let's head down to everyone else. We can talk about our plans once we are in Japan." Asia nodded and happily walked with her father towards the family dining room, where Giorno, Bruno, Mr. Fugo, Abacchio, Naranika, Kurama and Griselda were all seated and talking to one another. "Kid, it's good to see you." Kurama began with a toothy grin while his tails waved wildly in the air. "Ready for your last meal in this house for a while?" "I am pretty hungry," Asia admitted in a happy voice. "What's for dinner?" Naruto chuckled and pointed his thumb to his chest. "Whatever you want and I'll make it." Asia looked up to her father and clapped her hands together while tilting her head with an eye smile. "Oh, I have an idea, Daddy," the girl began, making everyone besides Griselda slightly inch out of their seats. "Since it's our last night in this house for a while, why don't we have a cook-off?" "Yeah." The 6 members of Naruto's top subordinates yelled as that practically jumped out of their seats. Naruto looked down and folded his arms while he watched Asia open her eyes, showing a fire and burning passion that made the father grin wide. "Heh, so you want one more loss before we move, huh?" Naruto asked with a booming laugh. "As if, Daddy. This time you're going down," Asia yelled loudly, which surprised Griselda. "What's got into Asia?" the angel asked in surprise as she had never seen the girl like this. Giorno chuckled and pointed at the father and daughter duo. "Growing up, me and my mother were not much of chefs, but father and Asia were. Eventually they started having competitions to see who was the best chef in the family. Surprisingly, Asia gets pretty competitive against father, but even more surprising is that he never pulls any punches with Asia and always beats her. And their competitions always result in the best food." Narancia yelled loudly while his mouth began to water. "Kurama, Griselda and Bruno, will you 3 be the judges for this competition?" Naruto asked loudly. "Of course, boss," Bruno replied. "Why not?" Kurama chuckled. Sure," Griselda replied nervously. Naruto grinned and looked down at Asia. "Well, the judges are set, Asia. Why don't you decide the theme for tonight's dish?" Asia brought her hand to her chin and began to brainstorm. However, after a few seconds she clicked her fingers and smiled. "In honor of Griselda, let's have the theme as a dish that makes one feel welcomed." Naruto grinned and pulled his old Konoha forehead protector from his pocket. Then with a determined look he tied his long blonde hair back with it. Meanwhile, Asia grabbed a small hair tie and placed her long straight hair back into a single ponytail. Kurama, give us the go. Naruto ordered as he kept his eyes focused on his daughter. Smirking, Kurama looked at the two Uzumakis who were shaking with excitement. Your time limit is 1 hour. Begin. With Kurama's go, Naruto and Asia both rushed into the kitchen and began to collect ingredients and utensils. Asia was the first of the two who began by chopping vegetables while using speed and precision that made her look like a master swordsman with a knife. Naruto, on the other hand, summoned a Rasengan and began to knead dough with his raw chakra. From the dining table, Griselda watched too with wide eyes as she had cooked with Asia before. However, now she was watching a whole new beast within the kitchen. Asia always cooked the most delicious food for me and I thought her mother taught her, but now I see where she gets her skill. Griselda mumbled softly as she watched the two cooks in a mesmerized trance. The boss did have Asia cooking in the kitchen by the time she was 3, but she still doesn't stack up to the boss. Abakio spoke up, which made Griselda glance back to the gangster. Hugo nodded and folded his arms. The boss is the strongest man alive, the world's most perverted author and the world's greatest chef. Griselda was genuinely shocked by the boy's declaration, she could believe the first two. However, she had a difficult time grasping the idea of Naruto's expertise in the kitchen. Is Naruto really that great of a cook? Giorno smiled and watched his father. When father lived in this dimension for a year, he went on a journey for the perfect ramen to compare with that of his home dimension. He, along with his clones, traveled the world and trained with top chefs all over the globe. The result was father absorbing recipes and techniques from almost every culture and cuisine possible. Trust me, he might be better at cooking than fighting. Amazing. Griselda gasped as she watched the two cook for another half an hour. However, it didn't take long for Asia to finish before her father and bring a group of plates for everyone at the table. And what have you prepared, Asia? Kurama asked softly while he watched the girl smile. I call this rainbow terrine. Asia began while she held her hands out to the colorful terrine arranged using 7 different vegetables layered to resemble a rainbow. This dish allows one to try the many different tastes of different vegetables in an ensemble that is both fun and delicious. However, it contains a hidden secret thanks to the effects of the auspice added to it, which gives a warm feeling to one's soul, as if walking with one's mom under a rainbow on a sunny day. Everyone listened to Asia's explanation before taking a bite out of the food given to them, resulting in everyone being engulfed in a warm, blissful feeling that rocked their senses to their core. Remarkable as always, Lady Asia, your cooking skills have grown in your time away. Bruno complimented. This might be your best dish yet, Asia. There is so much care and love packed into the terrine and is highlighted in each bite. The chakra fox praised. Griselda was blushing as she was swept with a wave of flavors that enveloped her body. It's amazing, Asia, I wish I was able to cook like you. This might be the most delicious thing I've ever had. Asia clapped her hands together and took a bow. Thank you for your kind words, everyone. The young blonde spoke genuinely. Well, ready for the main dish? Naruto asked with a loud laugh as he walked towards the dining table with several bowls. Then as he placed each bowl before everyone, he grinned ear to ear. I present you with Naruto's special rich ramen. A specialty of mine made with vegetarian broth mixed with soy milk and miso. Along with different variations of garnishes and gingers, the dish tastes like ramen with meat and fish. The dish revitalizes the body and makes one feel at peace through the use of nature chakra. I made this dish because anyone can toss meat into ramen and make it acceptable, but a true chef can expand his horizons by reaching new flavors in unconventional means. Please enjoy. Naruto's subordinates were the first to take a bite, which resulted in the boys all shouting in excitement before devouring their bowls without stopping. Griselda saw this and her eyes were wide in disbelief, as even the talking fox had his face buried into the bowl like a savage. So slowly the woman lifted a spoonful of her mouth and consumed some of the broth, which instantly caused the angel to tremble and nearly dropping her utensils. So good. Griselda yelled in pure ecstasy as her entire body felt hot and surrounded in pure bliss. I've never had food this good before. Naruto grinned and looked at the table. So I take this as another win for me? Yes. The entire table shouted, which of course made Naruto grin and look down at Asia. Sorry sweetie, that's loss number 500. The father declared with a hint of pride at defeating his baby girl so many times. It's only 478. Asia yelled childishly, which caused the girl to pout and turn away from her father. Get it right. Naruto laughed and took a seat by Griselda. Well, maybe one day you'll finally beat your old man, but not anytime soon. Asia looked to her father and noticed Griselda staring right at the man with a large blush, while at the same time taking deep breaths to recover herself from his incredible cooking. You might have won again, daddy. Asia began in thought while she looked directly at the angel and perfect human and rubbed her hands together. But now that Griselda has tasted your cooking, she will definitely want to be my new mommy. So that's one win for me, old man. Kuo Town, Japan. Unloading the last box into his new bedroom, Naruto smiled at his work and cupped his hands around his mouth. Asia, sweetie, do you need help unpacking your things? No daddy, Asia began, but as Naruto heard a crash and a yelp from Asia, he simply sighed and walked towards his daughter's new room. Finding the young blonde on her backside and buried under a pile of boxes. Are you sure about that? Naruto snickered softly while he entered the room and began to pull the boxes off his daughter. Seems like the mighty klutz of the Uzumaki family has had another accident. Asia stuck her tongue out and blew a raspberry at her father. I don't want to hear it from you. Naruto laughed and ruffled Asia's hair, which made the young girl blush from her father's affection. Always my little princess upset. Asia's eyebrow twitched and she forcefully turned her father towards the exit. Then by pressing her entire body into the man she attempted to push the blonde out of the room. However, Asia moving Naruto was like an ant trying to move a boulder. So the chuckling father didn't budge a single inch, which of course only annoyed the young teenager even more. Griselda. Daddy is being mean to me. Asia whined in desperation, which caused the woman to slowly approach the threshold of Asia's room. Griselda sighed and folded her arms against her large bust, which slightly jiggled in response. This caused Naruto's gaze to focus directly onto the woman in her new clothing, as Asia had convinced Griselda to ditch her nun robes for a very form-fitting orange and white sundress. A necessary step in the young girl's quest to get her father and Griselda together. The revealing sundress and daddy's favorite color to really catch his eye. Asia thought with joy, as she could see the effect it had on her father. Old perverts are so easy to manipulate. Naruto. The angel began in an exhausted voice, which slightly broke the perverted father out of his daze. However, Naruto wasn't ready for Griselda to suddenly reach out and grab his ear and violently jerk the father down and away from Asia. You need to stop treating poor Asia like a child. She is a young woman and doesn't need you constantly doting over her. Yeah, daddy. Asia added infirmly while the girl pointed at the restrained father. You should take some of your energy and use it on someone else. Ain't that right, Griselda? Said Angel blushed when she watched Asia wink in her direction, but Naruto missed this interaction completely. But it's my job as your father to shower you with love and affection. Giorno stopped letting me baby him years ago, and I don't know what to do if you make me stop. Naruto whined childishly. Kids grow up, daddy, and I've grown up from living on my own for so long. That's why you need to get yourself a wife. Asia giggled loudly, while Griselda blushed and Naruto was at a loss for words. Besides, you deserve someone to make you happy. Asia then clapped her hands together and lightly bounced on her toes. Maybe someone like Griselda. You do think Griselda is beautiful, don't you? Naruto glanced to the angel by his side who still had a firm grip on his ear. However, Griselda's normal firm and assertive expression was replaced by a flustered and nervous woman. One who was bright red in embarrassment while steam was rolling out of her ears. The boss of the passion stuttered out as he really didn't know how to respond to Asia's question. Griselda removed her hand from Naruto's ear and watched the man babble. Her mind going into overdrive at the possibilities as to what he was thinking. Some of which were hopeful that Naruto actually had an interest in her, while she also began to question and grow slightly discouraged that Naruto might not find her attractive. Asia of course watched the two adults and couldn't help herself from rolling her eyes. However, before Asia could press the situation any further, a voice saved the two from the girl. Father, are you here? The voice of Giorno called out, which made Naruto sigh in relief. Yes. The boss of the passion yelled in response, while he quickly dashed out of the room and towards his oldest child. This of course left Asia and Griselda alone, while the latter of the two was slowly starting to regain her composure. Asia, was all that necessary? The angel asked in an exhausted voice. Of course, Mom. Asia replied in a bubbly voice, while referring to the woman in such a manner in the absence of her father. Kurama always told me Daddy was very naive to relationships and the feelings of a woman. He told me it was a miracle he ever hooked up with my birth mother. So I'm just giving a little help. But what if I don't want to pursue a relationship with Naruto? Your meddling could only make things worse in the long run. Griselda began softly while she looked down at the younger blonde and was surprised by Asia's smirking face. Well, then you would be lying, Mom, and you might fall. Wouldn't want that to happen, would we? Asia asked in a mischievous tone while slowly placing her hand to her chin. But who knows, Daddy doesn't like heaven. So maybe the whole fallen angel thing would work for him. Asia. Griselda replied in a shocked voice while the mischievous girl merely giggled and walked off. Come on, Mom, let's go see what big brother Giorno is up to. Griselda watched Asia skip down towards the living room of the new Uzumaki house and sighed before following after the girl. However, once Griselda made her way into the man living room, she was shocked by what she found. Considering she found Naruto being kept at arm's length by Giorno, while the eldest child had a rather annoyed look on his face. The day is the worst day ever. The doting father whined loudly while he desperately reached out towards his son. First Asia is acting all grown up and now you're moving out. What is happening to our babies, Aurora? Giorno's eyebrow twitched and he continued to keep his sobbing father at a distance. I'm 19, father, it's perfectly normal for someone of my age to move out of the house. Besides, Asia lived away from home for years and I'm only moving a few blocks away. You're honestly too much. But I thought when we moved to Japan we were going to live like a family again. Naruto argued in response. Giorno sighed at his father's antics and glanced down to Kurama, who was sprawled out on a large sofa and asleep. Kurama, little help? The gangster asked nervously. Huffing in response, Kurama slightly opened his eyes and looked at Naruto. Quit being so overbearing, Naruto, and let Giorno live his own life. The idea of him along with the other capos living in separate housing sprinkled throughout the town was my idea. Considering it allows for a better expansion in the region and gives each boy more freedom. Honestly, you need a fucking hobby that doesn't revolve around your kids. Naruto glared at the talking fox. A hobby? For starters, I'm the boss of a worldwide organization, and second. The man began, but took a slight pause. Only to lunge forward at Giorno one more time, which resulted in Naruto being pushed back by his son. Please move back in. Asia watched her father and brother and couldn't help herself from shaking her head. Daddy, you need to give Giorno some space. He will never discover who he is as an individual, with you always over top of him controlling his life. Giorno has a dream and ambition that would benefit from being away from home. Asia is right. Griselda chimed in, while she looked at Naruto with an assertive expression and folded her arms. Besides, there is nothing you can do about the situation, as Giorno has already moved into his own place. Wait, did you both know about this? Naruto whined loudly. Everyone besides you knew about it simply because we all knew this would be your reaction. Kurama revealed, which of course made Naruto deflate sadly. Giorno along with Bruno and the others all have their own places within Kuo. Meanwhile, Asia, Griselda, your Dumbus and myself will be living here. Father, you might not like this, but it's for the best. Me living on my own doesn't mean you will see me any less, as I will still be working close with you for the passion. Giorno began softly, while the eldest of the Uzumaki children grabbed the collar of his shirt and smirked. After all, I have to keep working hard to see my own dream through. A dream where a true world of peace can be achieved, and I finally take your place as the head of the passion that protects that peace. Hearing the dream and passion behind his son's words, Naruto couldn't help himself from smiling softly. I wouldn't pick anyone else to take my place, as you're my most dependable subordinate. Naruto began, while he moved forward and quickly wrapped Giorno into a strong hug. But above all else, you're my precious son who I love dearly. Giorno smiled and finally accepted his father's embrace, while at the same time letting a small chuckle escape his lips. I love you as well, father, but I worry for you. Considering you better find a hobby soon, because without the passion to lead you might go insane. Trust me, Giorno, it will be years before I step down, so I have some time to think of something. Naruto replied with a small laugh. Well, we are talking about the passion, I believe it's time we focus on the present and our plans in Japan. Kurama spoke up while he stood on all fours and started to stretch. Giorno pointed to himself and grinned. I'll be spearheading our expansion in Japan, while father will be busy forming relations with other factions. Asia clapped her hands together. And I'll be helping daddy establish relations with the devils by befriending some high-profile devils attending Kuo High School. I still don't like that idea. Naruto admitted sternly while he folded his arms. Having you near any of the factions places you in possible danger. Daddy, I might not be worth much in a fight, but I can control my chakra enough to release a chakra spike to call for help. Asia pointed out, which caused Giorno to nod. And at that point any one of us could be at Asia's side before any harm could befall her. Giorno added in happily, which made his younger sister smile. And that's the only reason I'm allowing Asia to attend school and make contact with the devils for me. Naruto declared in response, while at the same time letting a small smile pass through his lips. Well, that and I have another insurance planned out. Well, from your experience with the angels, you obviously need help making contact with factions. So there is a reason why whatever you have planned you need Asia. Griselda chimed in. You're also a pervert and an old man, while the devils are in high school. Asia added with a slight laugh, which made Naruto slump over. Honestly, I'm surprised you haven't ruined this organization yet, Naruto. Kurama spoke up with a slight smirk. You're all so mean to me. Naruto whined softly, which caused everyone to laugh at his expense. I mean, Kurama isn't even doing anything to help around here. He just insults me. It's because you're a dumbus. Kurama insulted with a booming laugh. I'll show you a dumbus. Naruto growled with childlike anger, which only caused Kurama to roll his eyes and everyone else to sigh at the blonde's behavior. Griselda, why don't you go help daddy unpack things upstairs for a while? Asia purposed, which made the angel nod and grab Naruto by tightly pinching his cheek. That's a good idea, Asia. Griselda pointed out while she began to lead Naruto towards the upstairs portion of the house. Let's get back to work on unpacking our things, Naruto. Oh. The most powerful man alive yelled loudly, while his daughter snickered as she watched him get forcefully dragged away. Have fun you two. Don't do anything naughty while you're alone up there. Unless you want to. Asia called out loudly, while grinning ear to ear. Giorno chuckled and glanced down to his younger sister. So I've noticed you're trying to set up father with Griselda. Asia nodded and turned to Giorno. You're correct. Do you have a problem with that, Giorno? Shaking his head with a small smile, Giorno held his hands up. I have no complaints at all. Father deserves to find love again, and I think Griselda is a great person for him. Maybe I'll even help you get them together. Asia clapped her hands together and giggled happily. Oh, I'm so glad you're on my side, Giorno, but don't worry about helping me. I have everything under control. And besides. Asia began before taking a slight pause and rubbing her hands together, while Giorno slightly retracted back nervously. You're next on my list. And next. Giorno stuttered nervously, while he watched the normally sweet and innocent girl chuckle with a trickster's intent. Yup, I found the perfect wife for daddy, and now you're next. Asia declared loudly, which of course caused Kurama to toss his head back in laughter. This is why you're my favorite human, Asia. The chakra fox yelled with amusement laced in his voice. Asia giggled and hugged Kurama. And you're my favorite talking fox. Wanna go tease daddy and Griselda some more? Absolutely. Giorno smiled as he watched the two members of his family hug. It was a sweet and tender moment that warmed his heart and showed that despite everything they have been through, their family was still able to stand strong together. The next day, Kuo High School. The day was a normal day for one Issei Haidu. As per usual, he had began his day by spanking it 3 times before school and managed to peep on the girls' locker room during his free period without getting caught. However, all of that was about to change during his second period class. Issei's second period class was his biology class, or as he referred to it as 45 minutes of staring at Ria's grimoires without being caught class. Though oddly enough, Issei noticed 2 very obvious things. The first was that the annoying background noise of his teacher speaking was absent, showing the individual wasn't within the classroom. The other thing was, well, it was an observation that only the most perverted teenager alive would make. Man, Ria's is looking extra perky today. I think she may have went up a full cup size. God fucking bless puberty and the female body. The perverted brunette thought to himself while he was practically giggling to himself in excitement. Hearing the giggling boy, Ria's merely smirked and brushed her hair back. Then with the intent to entice the young pervert, she slowly glanced sideways to Issei's desk. An action which made the boy quickly snap his gaze forward and pretend as if he hadn't spent the last 5 minutes staring at her. This of course amused Ria's, as she had grown a slight interest in Issei and his future potential. Suddenly, before Ria's could continue to tease Issei, the door to their classroom burst open, revealing the head of their school followed by 2 unfamiliar individuals Ria's had never seen before. One was a male who looked to be in his very early 20s, while the other was a young blonde-haired girl around her own age holding a basket. These 2 unknowingly to Ria's were Bruno Bichirati and Asia Uzumaki. Students, I regret to inform you that your old instructor has been terminated from their position. However, I would like to introduce you to your new teacher, Mr. Bichirati, a very respectable individual from Italy. The head of the school revealed while slowly walking nervously towards the exit of the classroom. The room is yours, Mr. Bichirati. Bruno smirked and lightly adjusted his clothing, which was completely unusual and bizarre for a teacher. However, considering he was a gangster and not an educator, it explained his dress and little care for what anyone thought. Greetings, students, my name, like you've been told, is Mr. Bichirati and I shall be your new teacher. Bruno began calmly while he noticed all the young teenagers eyeing him. I also have the luxury of introducing a new student. Everyone please welcome Asia Uzumaki, who has recently moved to Japan with her family. Asia stepped forward with an innocent and friendly smile, which instantly grabbed the attention of every boy within the room. It's so wonderful to meet you all. I'm so excited to start my new life in Kuo and make many new friends. So to celebrate my first day, I made a special gift from me to all of you. Asia explained happily while she stepped forward and began to place small pastries on each student's desk. Issei watched with complete enthrallment as the young beauty girl placed a small and delightfully smelling dessert on his desk. This smells like Ria's looks. The boy thought in amazement. Ria slowly observed Asia approach her desk and felt almost as if something was off. Considering something about their new teacher and this new student seemed fishy to her. However, her suspicions quickly began to fade as she noticed Asia place down a delightfully smelling pastry on her desk. What are these? Ria's asked in a curious voice while she looked at the strange food placed before her. Asia giggled softly and smiled at Ria's. I'm somewhat of an amateur chef thanks to my daddy. These are cannelas, which are a popular Italian pastry. I made these as an act of friendship and to share with everyone a little bit of my home country. Asia explained as she held her hand out and tilted her head. So please everyone enjoy. Slowly but surely every single student began to take small bites from Asia's cannelas. However, this quickly forced each and every student to tremble and shake in response, while their taste buds were bombarded with flavors they never knew existed. Issei practically had his fourth orgasm of the day, while he desperately gripped down onto his desk to compose himself. Is this what sex feels like? Issei roared within his mind, while he could feel the flavors almost bursting the clothes off of his body. Meanwhile over with Ria's, the young devil was short of breath and could hardly contain herself. Considering just a single bite from Asia's pastry had sent her overboard with feelings of euphoria that was too much for the young Redeed. In fact, Ria's was debating on making Asia a member of her peerage right here and now in front of everyone, just based on the simple display of her cooking abilities. These are absolutely sinful. Ria's mumbled in a rare form of pure vulnerability. Sinful? Issei mumbled softly, while the young pervert held what was left of his cannoli high into the air. Blasphemy, this is the work of a goddess. You're right. Another boy within the class spoke up. Just look at her delicate and pure features. She is truly a goddess sent here to bless us. All hail the goddess of Kuo. One of Issei's perverted friends chimed in loudly. Followed by the entire class of males and even some females joining in on the chant, thus creating Asia the goddess of Kuo High School. I'm so glad you like them. Asia replied happily, while at the same time slowly walking back over to Bruno. Oh, and one for you, Mr. Bichirati. Bruno laughed softly and accepted a cannoli from Asia. Thank you very much, Asia, but why don't you take your seat? Bruno purposed, while he grabbed a seating chart and smirked to himself. I see there is an open seat right over there. Asia looked to where Bruno was pointing and smiled as she saw the gangster pointing to an empty seat by Ria's grimoire. This was perfect for Asia, as befriending the devil was her main objective and was why she already knew the girl's name, appearance and a few other things the passion has learned. Ria's on the other hand knew none of this about Asia and merely watched a new girl take a seat by her with slight interest. Welcome to Kuo. The redhead devil spoke up in a friendly voice while extending her hand outward to Asia. I'm Ria's grimoire. Asia smiled and accepted the hand before giggling aloud. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ria's. I hope we can become good friends. Ria's simply smirked and retracted her hand under her chin before giving an eye smile. I hope so as well, Asia. With Naruto walking down a busy market street within Kuo Town, Naruto was observing the local business and people of the region. Doing so for the simple reason of gathering information on his new surroundings, well that and also the man was pretty bored without anything to do at home. So he felt getting out and exploring a little would do his boredom some good. However, Naruto wasn't alone in his exploration of the area as Griselda was following close to his side. Naruto noticed the angel seemed busy tapping on a tablet and had the majority of her attention on whatever she was working on. This of course left an air of silence between the two and Naruto didn't care for that one bit and decided to speak up. Well, what do you think of Kuo? It's nice. Griselda replied simply while she lifted an eyebrow before going further into work. A reaction which piqued Naruto's curiosity and caused the man to lean into the woman and look over at what she was doing. What you working on, Griselda? Naruto asked in a friendly tone. Griselda frowned and looked up to the strongest man alive. I'm going over some of the documents that Rizado sent over after you took over the church. Oh really? I haven't had a moment to go over those myself. Naruto admitted with a soft laugh before rubbing the back of his head. What has Rizado sent over? Well, it appears the Passion has control of the church, but Michael managed to withdraw a large portion of his loyalists under his control. According to Rizado, the Angel faction has no footholds on Earth he can find, but their numbers didn't take too much of a blow. Griselda explained in an upset voice while she returned to her tablet. That's expected. Naruto spoke up in a matter-of-fact voice as he took on a more calculated demeanor. Still, with no base of operations, it doesn't matter if the Angels kept their numbers. Considering it's difficult for them to make a serious move without altering the Passion thanks to how expansive my organization is. Yeah. Griselda replied softly. Naruto sighed as he didn't need to read the woman's emotions to know she was troubled. So resting his hand on her shoulder, Naruto mustered a sympathetic smile and began to speak. Tell me, Griselda, what's troubling you? Perhaps I can be of some assistance. It's Zenovia. The angel began softly, which instantly made Naruto understand. I haven't spoken to her in months, and I'm worried about how she is being affected by heaven being uprooted out of humanity. Naruto nodded, considering he would have the exact same worries if Asia was in Zenovia's situation. I understand you're worried about her. That also explains why you're going through Rizado's documents from the church. You're looking for any information on Zenovia, but why don't you try to contact her? Hell, have you even spoken to anyone from heaven since coming with me? No, I haven't spoken to anyone involved with the Angel faction. Griselda admitted to Naruto sadly, as she truly missed her adoptive daughter. I'm almost afraid of hearing anything, as I don't want to know if anything awful has happened to Zenovia as a result of you kicking the Angels out of Earth. I'm even more worried that someone might try to have Zenovia turned against me in my absence to ensure her loyalty. Well, you're still loyal to the angels in heaven, so why would anyone turn Zenobia against you? That's the thing. Griselda began softly while she slightly zoned out and looked forward. My loyalties are not as strong as you would believe. When I was turned into an angel I was told the truth that the biblical God was dead, which made me question my entire life mission of serving him. Even more so after hearing how disposable I am to heaven and seeing what happened to Asia. Well, let's just say if Michael didn't have his proposal to work alongside you, I may have left on my own accord. Naruto nodded and placed his hands into his pockets. Meanwhile, Zenobia is unaware of any of this, I assume, which explains why you're fearful of someone turning her against you. However, for the meantime Heaven or anyone around Zenobia has no reason to do anything like that. Griselda nodded and lowered her head. You're somewhat right, but in truth I've actually been contemplating on leaving the church officially and cutting all ties with heaven. A response that would cause people to either use Zenobia against me or she could even flat out hate me for my actions. You think too much, Griselda. Naruto admitted before he wrapped an arm around the woman's neck and smiled. I'm sure no matter what Zenobia loves you enough to respect your feelings and decision. And from one parent to another you should call Zenobia and tell her how you feel about heaven before doing anything rash. Griselda smiled at Naruto's advice and closeness as his actions made her feel slightly more confident. I think I will. Good. Naruto replied with an eye smile. And no matter what happens you'll have my help and support with whatever you decide to do. Griselda looked up to Naruto with a blush as Asia was always trying to pair her with a man. However, after spending only a short amount of time with Naruto, she was already starting to fall for the man. Considering his kindness and ideals were unlike anything she had ever seen in anyone. I might just be your new mommy, Asia. Griselda thought to herself while she allowed her worries and fears to slip away. Oh, would you look at that? Naruto spoke up while he looked at his cell phone with a wide smile. What is it, Naruto? Naruto grinned. Just a text from Bruno, apparently Asia is having a very successful first day. That's wonderful. We should celebrate later tonight. Griselda purposed, which made Naruto grin. That's a wonderful idea, Griselda. Let's go get some groceries and I'll cook a special dinner tonight. Griselda nodded and the two slowly continued their way down the street together. Neither noticing just how close they were to each other. But Asia, school has just ended and Asia was walking around the school grounds with a happy expression. Her first day was a massive success and she loved every moment of it. Considering today was her first true experience in a school setting and she never imagined school being as fun as it was for her. I don't know why daddy always hated school so much. Asia spoke to herself while she walked around the crowded school grounds with a large smile. Though the Shinobi Academy was probably a lot different than this place. Asia looked around and took in all the sights as students were spread all around her in different groups. To her understanding this particular school had a large assortment of after-school clubs, which explained why the school was so populated even though the day had ended. Now to find where Ria's is, which could be hard since this school is so large and I don't know where to start. Asia mumbled softly while she folded her arms and looked around. However, after a small moment Asia simply smirked and snapped her fingers. Well, if I want to find a beautiful girl the best place to ask is with the local perverts. With her goal in mind Asia walked towards the girls' shower house with a smile. If daddy and his stories of Jiraiya are anything to go on then to find the perverts, I have to go where the naked girls are. Wasting no time finding the girls' shower house, Asia smiled as she saw 3 giggling boys peeping through a crack in the building. Man, it's good to be alive. Issei giggled softly as he didn't want to alert any of the girls inside. Absolutely man, it's titty city in there. One of Issei's perverted friends added in. Hey, you think that new girl is in there? Another of Issei's friends asked. Asia walked stealthily behind the 3 perverted peepers with a grin. Nope, I'm right behind you 3. The blonde giggling softly, releasing a yelp in astonishment and turning around only to smack into the building. Issei and his 2 friends looked at a giggling Asia with fear in their eyes. Hey, is someone out there? A girl within the shower house asked loudly. Better not be any fucking perverts. Another girl roared loudly. Issei and his friends were practically shaking in fear at this point, which only caused Asia to smile and cup her hands around her mouth. No ladies, it's just me, the new girl Asia. The Uzumaki began, which completely stunned the 3 perverts. I thought I heard some perverts walking around, but it was nothing. You all are good to get real wet and soapy. Thanks, sister. A girl replied loudly. Yeah, it's a blessing to have a girl around to keep an eye out around here. Another girl spoke up. Think nothing of it. Asia called back while she watched Issei and his crew bowing up and down in worship to her kindness. We are forever in your debt, Asia. Issei declared boldly. Asia grinned with a trickster smile that screamed Naruto Uzumaki and she slowly bent swords to face the boy. Oh, I know you are. Tell me, what's your name? Issei. The leader of the perverts answered nervously. Well, Issei. Asia began softly while she looked down at Issei with a curious smirk. Where can I find Ria's grimoire? With Riaz seated behind her desk within the occult research club, Riaz was alone with her best friend and vice president Akeno Himejima, who was watching her king with a happy smile while standing before the girl. However, Riaz seemed distracted and that was something Akeno easily picked up on. "Something bothering you, President?" Akeno asked in a friendly voice, which caused Riaz to sigh. "I've just been thinking about the new girl Asia Uzumaki," Riaz admitted honestly. Akeno grinned with a devilish grin and leaned forward. Oh my, President, I never knew your interests ran in that direction." Riaz narrowed her eyes and glared at her queen. "That's not it at all, Akeno." Akeno placed a single finger to her cheek and gave an eye smile. "Well then, what's got you so upset?" "I'm not upset, Akeno, but I can't help shaking this feeling that something is off with this Asia girl. She's just too perfect?" Akeno asked with a slight laugh as she had seen the girl in one of her own classes today. Making the half-devil half-fallen angel even admit that the blonde was very interesting. "Yes," Riaz shouted loudly. "But it's more than that. I've asked Sona about her and the new teacher Mr. Bichirati, and you know what she said. Nothing. There is nothing the student council president can find or access about either of them. That is strange." Akeno began with an interest in her voice. "What do you plan to do about them, President?" "Honestly, I want to add Asia into my peerage more than anything. She has me enthralled by her pure nature and kind heart. As a devil she is a pure soul I would love to corrupt. Oh my, even more than that is a boy." Riaz nodded and closed her eyes. "Yes, she intrigues me more than I can explain. She has this aura that follows her, which is completely intoxicating. However, I won't make any rash choices until I'm certain who she is and what she wants." "Well, President, I'll help you with whatever you want to do." Akeno replied happily, which made the crimson-haired girl smile. "Thank you, Akeno." Riaz began while the door to her office slowly opened, revealing the young rook of Riaz peerage Kaneko Taoju. "Yes, is there something you need, Kaneko?" Someone is here to see you, President." Kaneko explained while she stepped further into the office. "She says her name is Asia Uzumaki. Want me to tell her to take a hike?" Riaz was surprised but quickly shook her head and stood up. "No, Kaneko, that's not needed, but I'll go see our little visitor." Standing outside of the occult research club, Asia noted it was a fairly nice building. However, the daughter of the most powerful man alive didn't have much time to observe her surroundings as the door to the club opened to reveal Riaz herself. "May I help you, Asia?" Riaz asked in a friendly voice. Asia nodded with a small bow. "Actually yes, you could, Riaz. I'm here to see if I could join your club." Riaz raised her brow with interest and kept a blank expression, but on the inside she was smirking happily. "And why would you wish to join my club?" "Just want to make friends and you seem like an interesting person," Asia replied simply. "I see, well I normally don't accept many people into the org. However, you seem like a possible fit for my group." Riaz explained softly while she crossed her arms. "I can get some documents prepared in the next few days for the student council since Sona requires every club to do so. This means you won't be able to join for a few days, but I'll give you a chance to join if that's okay with you." Asia smiled and nodded. "That's perfectly okay with me, Ria-san, as it gives me a few days to adjust to Kuo." The girl began while holding a small piece of paper out to the devil. "Here, have my phone number." Riaz accepted the number and grinned. "We will be in touch." Asia nodded with a grin of her own. "Let's hope so." Grigori headquarters. Standing with his gaze outside of a window was the leader of the fallen angels, Azazel, who was a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and a black goatee. He was dressed in a V-neck maroon long coat with a wide open high collar that opens up at the hem. The long coat also featured 2 black belts around the waist and 4 black bands on each arm, 2 of the bands at the wrist and the other 2 near the elbow. Finally, the man wore a simple pair of gray slacks and brown shoes. To his left, leaning against a wall, was one of his most loyal allies, Veil Lucifer, who was a young and handsome boy with light silver hair dressed in a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. He also wore burgundy jeans with a silver chain drooping down over them and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf and black shoes with black buckles over top. Both individuals had serious looks on their faces, but that was due to the presence of the third and final person in the room. Said person being the leader of Heaven, Michael, who had a friendly smile directed right into the back of Azazel. "So tell me, Michael." Azazel began in a calm voice, while at the same time turning his body to meet the gaze of his former brother Angel. "What exactly brings the leader of Heaven to my doorstep?" Michael gave a simple smile and tilted his head. "I just wish to pass some information your way, Azazel. Nothing more, nothing less." "Well," Azazel replied before taking a seat at his desk and motioning the angel to speak with his hand. "Don't leave me in suspense. You've always been a well-informed person in the past. Tell me, have you heard of the Passion?" Michael asked in a curious voice. Azazel hummed and took a moment to think, but ultimately he shook his head with a laugh. No, I don't think I have. Is there a reason I should? Michael nodded and his features dropped from a friendly demeanor to a much more serious one. Considering they kicked the angels out of Earth and took all the churches in my control for themselves. Yes, you should. Ollie scoffed and crossed his arms. Well, isn't that rich? Heaven getting one. Bail. That's enough. Azazel cut in sharply while his eyes were completely focused on Michael. Explain yourself, Michael. The angel sighed. The passion apparently from what I've managed to scrounge around is a gang formed within Italy. However, in the past few years they have worked within the shadows to place their control everywhere around the world. Azazel, these guys are a serious danger as they have gained so much power without alerting any faction I've contacted. Though that isn't the most alarming thing. Well, enlighten me. The day Heaven lost the churches was the day I met their leader. Michael took a pause and didn't speak. An action which caused the interest of Azazel and Vali to rise. His power was like standing before Father again. You mean fucking God? Vali asked in a stunned voice as he was almost shaking with excitement. His mind thinking that someone that strong actually existed for him to fight. Wait, let's backtrack. Azazel spoke up while he waved his hand around in a frantic hurry. As strong as God. Who is this person? An angel? A devil? Maybe someone with the pantheons? He's human. Michael explained, which caused the room to go dead silent. A human? Azazel asked before running a hand through his hair. You're telling me a human with the power of God exists? One who has an organization that arguably has more influence on Earth than both our groups? Yes, now do you understand why I'm bringing this information to you? Michael asked in a simple voice. This passion and their leader Naruto Uzumaki are a potential danger to everything we know. Naruto Uzumaki. Azazel suddenly mumbled in confusion while he opened a drawer in his desk and began to dig around. Now I've heard that name somewhere before. Michael and Vali both watched a fallen angel pull out a simple orange book and open said book to the author biography. Is this him? Looking at the picture of a smiling blonde with long hair and a goofy grin, Michael nodded. Yes, that is the man. That's the man. Vali began in a stunned voice and for the first time he pushed himself away from the wall he was reclining on to walk over and point at the picture. This pervert kicked heaven off Earth and has the power to rival God. That is what I'm saying. Michael replied. Azazel studied the picture with a hard and calculated gaze, which of course caused the other two within the room to observe the fallen angel's reaction. Thinking that the leader of the fallen angels was taking his time to think of a logical course of action to deal with the passion. You think if I found this man? Azazel began before grabbing a few more books and grinning ear to ear. I could get him to sign my collection. I'm a big fan. Michael sighed and dropped his shoulders while Vali simply pinched the bridge of his nose in annoyance. With Asia walking down an empty sidewalk, Asia was making her way to her new home with a happy smile. Today was a big success in her book and she couldn't wait to tell her father about her first day at school. However, as Asia made her way up some stairs that led to a bridge that passed over a busy street, the young Uzumaki was surprised to find the pervert she met early today Issei, who appeared to be having a confrontation with a member of the opposite sex. A sight that surprised Asia, but due to her kind nature, she hoped the girl wasn't trying to hurt him for his perverted antics. Since why else would a girl be talking to a pervert except for the reason of kicking his ass? So with her curiosity piqued, Asia used her ability to sense the emotions of the two teenagers. This of course caused her to giggle when she felt the amount of lust and pervy thoughts radiating off of Issei. He's definitely more perverted than daddy. Asia giggled to herself while she drew closer. I wonder if this was what Jiraiya was like. However, Asia's humor quickly dropped the moment she felt the girl's emotions. As they were so dark and full of malice that it made the young Uzumaki stop and tremble in place. In fact, this dark twisted evil was almost as intense as what she felt back in the Vatican City from the devil that was stalking her. Oh Issei, you're so funny and cute. The girl yelled loudly with a flirty giggle, which Asia instantly knew was put on and fake. Asia slowly tightened her knuckles as her father told her about the devil he killed and the plans that devil had for her. This of course instantly made her think that something that almost happened to her could happen to Issei right here and now. Pervert or not. Asia thought to herself while she bit her lip and summoned the courage to move. Her kind and delicate nature possessing her to move forward and help a potential person in need. I won't let anything bad happen to him. So taking a deep breath and swallowing her nerves, Asia forced a large smile. Issei. Asia called out happily while she waved down to the boy, turning around and completely ignoring the girl he was speaking with. Issei was surprised to see the girl who had already saved his ass once today. Hey Asia. That is my name. Asia replied loudly while she quickly reached out and grabbed Issei's arm. I'm so glad I found you. I'm trying to find my house, but this town is so confusing. Can you help me find my way home? Issei was at a loss for words as one of the most beautiful and coolest girls he had met remembered his name and was asking him for help. However, what Issei didn't know was that Asia was lying. Considering she was just trying to get Issei away from this girl without causing a scene. In fact, Asia was hoping she wouldn't have to flare her chakra and make an unnecessary scene involving her father or someone else in the passion. Sure. Issei replied nervously as he still couldn't believe his luck. Excuse me. The girl began in an annoyed voice while she glared at Asia. I was talking with Issei. Issei held up a hand and chuckled nervously. Now you it's . Well, you're not anymore. Asia replied back with fire in her eyes as some of her father's spitfire personally came through. Now come on Issei, my parents will be upset if I'm late for dinner. Issei had no say in the matter as Asia suddenly dragged him away almost like she knew where she was going. However, Issei was too surprised to make any connection like that. Asia on the other hand took a deep breath to regain her composure as she walked away. Considering that small act of courage was more than the shy and kind girl had ever displayed before. The girl by the name of Yuma on the other hand simply watched the two walk away with a frown. However, that frown quickly shifted into a sadistic grin and a gaze that focused directly onto Asia. But Giorno, stalking his way up a flight of stairs, Giorno was currently holding a bag of groceries to bring into his new apartment. Considering after a day of working on expanding the passion in Kuo, he finally took the time to settle himself in. Eventually the gangster made his way to his new place and reached for the key in his pocket. However, at the same moment Giorno heard a soft meow, which caused him to glance over his shoulder. Finding a black cat seated on the railing of the apartment building. Naya. The cat spoke happily, which made the gangster smile. Well, hey there. Giorno began softly while he reached out and rubbed the cat's ears. Are you my new neighbor? Naya. The cat replied before it began to purr loudly. Giorno laughed and backed away from the animal and went back to opening his new apartment. Unfortunately for Giorno, the moment he began to open his door, the cat quickly dashed its way into his apartment uninvited. An action that caused the gangster to frown and watch the black cat come to a stop on his kitchen counter. What are you doing? Giorno sighed softly while he placed his bags down and walked further into the apartment. I'm not looking for a roommate. Naya. The cat replied before rolling on its back and rubbing its head against the edge of Giorno's counter. You have to leave. Giorno began before he reached out and grabbed the cat. However, to Giorno's shock, the look of sadness coming from the cat was enough to make the seasoned gangster falter. Don't give me that look. Giorno ordered in a stern voice. A soft and weak meow was the cat's reply, which made Giorno slowly crack. Damned it if the others saw me. Giorno mumbled as he thought of his fellow gangsters. Okay, you can stay for a little bit, Naya. The cat shouted happily while it began to lick Giorno's chiseled chest. However, the odd thing was how much the cat seemed to enjoy licking the well-toned and handsome blonde. Well, I guess I should name you. How about Black Cat? Giorno asked, noticing the animal almost seemed annoyed. This of course made the blonde laugh. Okay, we will work on the name thing. But Asia, walking home with Issei, Asia had spent a decent amount of time talking to the boy. In that time she learned just how much of a massive pervert he was, but at the same time she got glimpses of a kind and fun person. Unfortunately for Issei, most of his redeeming characteristics were held back by his perverted nature. Asia on the other hand didn't care all that much that Issei was a big pervert. Considering her father, who wasn't as bad as Issei, was still a huge pervert, and she loved Naruto with her whole heart. She also was a gentle and kind soul who showed everyone love and respect, so honestly Issei was lucky that Asia was the way she was. Considering if not, something awful could have befallen him, but he wasn't out of danger yet. This because he was currently approaching the Uzumaki home with Asia. Man, Asia, your house is amazing. Issei shouted in disbelief as he looked up to the massive upscale home. Oh, this is nothing. You should see my homes back in Italy. Asia replied back innocently. Homes? Issei asked, making sure he heard the plural tense right. Asia nodded like nothing was strange at all. Yeah, back in Italy my family owned several houses throughout the country. Slowly approaching the door, Issei was dumbfounded. Is your family rich or something? Asia giggled. Definitely something. The girl replied before grinning ear to ear. Oh, you should join me and my family for dinner. I would love for my parents to meet my first real friend in Japan. Friend? Issei asked in a stunned voice, as a beautiful girl never called him friend. Normally he would just get called loser, pervert or freak. Yes, silly. Asia giggled happily as she just planned to save Issei from that girl from earlier. Though oddly enough Asia actually found herself enjoying Issei's company as he was an entertaining person. Oh, please stay for dinner. I would love for daddy and mom to meet you. I don't know, Asia. Issei began nervously, but before he knew it the girl started to knock on her door. Showing that she never took no for an answer and was a little pushy at times. I'm home. The girl declared loudly while another voice on the other side called back to Asia. However, the voice was muffled by the door, so Issei didn't know what to expect. Welcome home, Asia. The voice of Griselda greeted as the door slowly opened, which caused Issei to blush a deep shade of crimson. Considering he wasn't expecting to see a blonde-haired woman who looked in her 20s with that put any girl at Kuo to shame. "Mom?" Asia chipped happily while she lunged forward and hugged the woman. Mom?" Issei mumbled in a stunned voice while he watched Asia practically bury her head in Griselda's beasts as she hugged the woman. Thinking to himself that if Griselda was Asia's mother, the young teen was only going to get hotter as she grew. "Asia?" Griselda began in a low voice while she glared at the blushing pervert. "What did I always tell you about taking in every pathetic-looking stray you come across?" Asia laughed and backed away. "Silly mommy. Issei isn't a stay. He's my new friend from school. Can he join us for dinner? Is he house-trained?" Griselda asked in an annoyed voice while Issei chuckled nervously. "Oh mom, you're so funny. Hey, have you and daddy started working on my little sister yet?" Asia asked innocently, which of course made the angle blush and look away. "Just come in for dinner already." Griselda grumbled in response while she stepped aside and allowed Asia and Issei passage. Asia grinned ear to ear and pulled Issei into her home. "Daddy, Kurama. I'm home and we have a guest." "Who is Kurama?" Issei mumbled while Griselda folded her arms with a cocky smirk. "He's Kurama," Griselda explained while she pointed to the wolf-sized fox with crimson eyes and 9 tails, stalking his way to Issei. Moving in a way that almost seemed like the fox was slowly preparing to strike for a kill. "Kurama!" Asia suddenly yelled happily while she ran forward and draped herself over the creature's body with a wide hug. "Oh, I had the most wonderful day at school. I can't wait to tell you all about it." Issei watched the sweet girl shower the fox with love and affection. However, Kurama merely kept a toothy snarl directed right in his direction. A death glare that left the boy so frozen in fear he couldn't even question why the fox had red eyes and 9 tails. "Do I hear my sweet little princess?" The voice of Naruto called out from the kitchen, which was followed by the man's footsteps. Issei watched with wide eyes as a young-looking man that seemed no older than 20 walked into the room with a wide smile. However, his bright smile quickly dropped as he looked directly at Issei. "Who the hell are you?" Naruto asked as his jovial tone completely gone and replaced by a vicious and cold one. "Everyone," Asia began while she held her hands out to Issei. "I would like to introduce a new friend of mine from school, Issei Haidu. He will be joining us for dinner tonight." Naruto folded his arms and was about to speak, but to his surprise Issei fell to the ground and bowed at Naruto's feet. An action which completely surprised the blonde father. "I can't believe it." Issei yelled loudly while he actually began to cry real tears. "I'm meeting my hero. Your books helped me learn how to read. I can't believe Asia is your daughter, Lord Naruto." Naruto, Griselda and Kurama all looked at the sobbing pervert with different looks. However, they were all thinking the same thing. What in the hell did Asia bring home? Isn't he just the funniest? Asia asked with a small giggle and eye smile before she bounced on her toes and clapped her hands. "But I'm hungry, so let's eat."